Meeting of the Sterling Heights Special City Council for April 2024. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, please bless our elected officials. Grant them courage and wisdom to do what is right for all citizens. Amen.
Amen. Ms. Riska, can we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Taylor, Ms. Sarowski,
Here?
Mrs. Kosky,
Present.
Mr. Radke,
Present.
Mrs. Schmidt, Mr. Yanez.
Here.
And Mrs. Yerko.
Present.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Riska. I'm going to let you know Mayor Taylor will be late, but he will be attending. And Ms. Schmidt is ill today, so we do have a quorum, but we are a little late today. Council, can we have approval of the agenda, please?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, Ms. Kosky?
move to approve the agenda.
Support. It's been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now I will be turning the meeting over to our city manager for probably most of the remainder of the night, Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem Sarowski. Fortunately, you don't have to listen to me all night. We have many of more exciting presenters this evening. A lot of our directors and managers are present tonight who've worked very hard on the budget proposal that you're about to hear about. The proposed budget continues to focus on financial stability while continuing major infrastructure improvements, new initiatives, many of which you're going to hear tonight, centered on technology and innovation. The proposed budget enhances exemplary public safety services and expanded quality of life amenities through improved pathways, library services, and sustainability initiatives. The budget incorporates feedback received from the City Council throughout the year, most importantly, including our strategic planning session that was held back in January, and other methods of feedback throughout the year, including ideas and thoughts that come up at council meetings that the City Council wants us to follow up on, and often which require budgetary approval. And everything that is provided tonight and throughout our budget process at the next hearing and for final adoption, everything in the budget is centered on and aligned with our new Visioning 2040 plan, which was approved by the City Council at your last regular meeting. And as I mentioned, like past years, we have a number of presentations planned this evening. In fact, in rehearsals, this timed out to be about 90 minutes, plus or minus a few minutes. That may sound long, but we have a number of presenters, so it moves along very quickly. And if the City Council desires any budget changes or amendments this evening regarding any of the topics you hear or anything otherwise, without council opposition, we will then formalize any suggested amendments with motions to consider at the second budget hearing coming up. All motions for any amendments will need to be voted on at your next public hearing, budget public hearing, so that they can be incorporated into the final budget approval in May. There will be plenty of time for questions and comments, of course, from the mayor and city council and audience members after the presentations. And as always, we kick this off with our budget and finance director, Jennifer Varney, who's going to provide a detailed overview of the budgets tonight. And then we'll get into our more targeted presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Sarowski, Mr. Vanderpool, Mr. Kashubski, and members of council. I'm happy to be here tonight to present the fiscal year 24-25 proposed budget. The total city budget, all funds this year, is $252 million, which can be broken down into the 5 major fund types as depicted here. The largest city fund, the general fund, totals $125.7 million, about half of the total fund budget. And that's followed by the water and sewer fund at just under $62 million, and that's 25% of the total fund budget. Special revenues, capital projects, and debt service funds make up the remainder. The proposed total fund budget is $34.5 million, or 12% less than the current year's total fund budget. And you can see the major changes by fund depicted in this chart. The American Rescue Act Plan Fund is down $13.4 million, as all of the funds were appropriated in the First Amendment to the current year's fiscal budget. Unspent funds will be carried forward as necessary into next fiscal year. As a reminder, all funds must be obligated by December 31st, 2024. The Road Bond Construction Fund is down $11 million as the Mound Road project is nearing completion. Sorry about that. We do have a final allocation in the current year's proposed budget of about $2 million to finish up the project. The Major Roads Fund is down $8.6 million due to the timing of road projects. The current year amended budget of $16 million includes about $9.6 million of projects carried over from 2023. There is $7.8 million of new projects included in the proposed budget. The Capital Projects Fund is down about $6 million, and this is again due to timing of projects. There's about $5.7 million of unfinished project in the current year's budget. The Local Road Fund is down $1.7 million, and that's due to a grant-funded traffic calming study and a USDA Community Forest Grant in the current year. LDFA expenditures are down $1 million, and that's due to two large construction projects in the current year, the reconstruction of the Velocity Center parking lot and the reconstruction of Brentwood Drive. The General Fund increased $5.6 million, and the Refuse and Recycling Fund increased about $1.8 million, and more detail on these funds will be provided later in the presentation. Next, on to the General Fund. The General Fund budget totals $125.7 million and is about, again, 50% of the total city budget. The General Fund can be divided into the city's 8 departmental budgets as depicted here, and you can see that public safety makes up over 50% of the General Fund budget, actually about 56%. The total General Fund budget increased 4.7%, or $5.6 million over the current year, and the main variances are listed here. $4.4 million in increased wages and benefits due to contractual wage increases and additional proposed positions. The required pension contribution for the police and fire system increased $800,000, while the contribution to the general employee system decreased about $75,000. The recommended contribution to the OPEB, or the retiree medical plan, this year is $7.1 million, and that's a decrease of $1.2 million over the current year contribution. And the proposed budget does not include a contribution over and above the recommended contribution. Health insurance rates increased about 8.5%, and that resulted in about a $600,000 increased expenditure, and $1.1 million in additional liability and other insurances will be transferred to the self-insurance fund due to higher claims than expected. Savings were seen in street lighting due to the completion of the LED conversion and contractual services due to the assumption of some of these services by city personnel. So the proposed budget includes 14 personnel additions when compared to the current year's budget. However, only 3 of these positions represent a permanent increase to general fund expenditures, and that's the first 3 on this list: the animal control assistant in the police department, and the 2 new positions in fire prevention, the community risk reduction officer and the mobile integrated EMS health coordinator. The next 2 positions, the police lieutenant and the assistant fire chief, those had already been approved by city council in the current year first amendment to the budget. And the next 3 positions are temporary due to succession planning. The remainder of the additional positions are cost neutral and are offset either through the elimination of contractual services or the elimination of other positions. As you can see in this graph, the city has been strategically adding back full-time personnel over the past decade. However, we are still down 104 positions from the high of 649 in 2002. And at 4 full-time employees per 1,000 residents, we still rank lower than all of our comparable communities and significantly lower than communities like Lansing, Grand Rapids, and Southfield that have double the amount of employees per 1,000 residents. I wanted to go over an update on the pension and OPEB plans. Funding in the proposed budget for pension and retiree medical, or OPEB, liabilities totals over $26 million. You can see here that over the past 5 years, funding for the general employees plan, which is represented by the first set of blocks, is relatively stable. And that is indicative of a closed plan, as the liabilities tend to stabilize as no new members are added. The middle set on the graph represents the police and fire plan contributions, and this is the only open system, and those contributions continue to increase annually, primarily due to the addition of new members. While the good news is the recommended contributions for the OPEB system have been declining, and we're seeing the results of our commitment to fully funding, and in fact, overfunding this plan. This graph shows the estimated future contributions for each plan through 2030. You can see the trends from the previous slide basically continue, and the OPEB contribution stabilizing at a lower level around the $6 million annual contribution amount. And of course, each plan is evaluated annually by our actuaries to ensure we are staying on track towards full funding. The results of the most recent actuarial study are shown here, with all 3 plans increasing funding levels from the prior year, primarily due to strong investment returns. Next up, general fund revenues, which total $125.7 million, broken down into the major categories as depicted on this chart. Property taxes still make up most of the general fund revenue at 61% of the total. Total general fund revenues increased by $6.4 million, or 5.3%. Taxes from the city operating and Safe Streets millages increased $4 million due to an overall rise in taxable value of 7.2%. The inflationary increase that most residents will see is 5%, which is capped amount under state law, and that's just below the actual inflation rate of 5.1%. The remainder of the increase comes from growth and home sales, resulting in the uncapping of values. Revenue from the police and fire pension tax will increase about $1 million due to the increase in the required contribution. State shared revenue is projected to be about $250,000 higher than last year, based on estimates from the state of Michigan, for a total of $16.1 million annually in state shared revenue. The ongoing higher interest rates have increased investment income in the general fund by $1 million, and transport revenue is projected to increase by about $300,000. Finally, federal grant revenue is lower, as several non-reoccurring grants were received in the prior year. However, grant revenue estimates, along with expenditures, are updated throughout the year as new grants are received. The proposed city millage rate for the 2024 tax year is slightly higher at 16.59 mills compared to 16.38 in the current year. The police and fire retirement millage increased slightly, 0.025 mil, due to the increase in the required contribution. But the rest of the increase is in the refuse millage. The refuse millage now totals 1.35 mils, which is an increase of 0.19 over the current rate. The average taxable value for a home in Sterling Heights is just over $98,000, an increase of about $6,400 over last year's average, and equates to a home with a market value of over $284,000, which means that for the average resident is paying about 35%, their taxable value is about 35% of their market value. The annual city taxes on the average home will be $1,632, or $136 a month for all city services. That's about $11 per month higher than last year. As you can see from this chart, the city's tax rate continues to be one of the lowest in the county. The expected general fund revenues exceed expenditures by just under 89,000, resulting in an addition to fund balance. Cumulative fund balance continues to be very strong and is projected to total about $37 million at the end of fiscal '25, which is about 30% of expenditures. We've remained relatively stable for the past few years, and this is a very healthy level that will allow the city to continue to invest in services and infrastructure while maintaining a low tax rate. Next, let's look at the special revenue funds, 11 funds totaling $47.9 million. The major and local road funds make up just under 50% of the special revenue funds and total $23 million to fund the maintenance and repairs to the city's major roads and local neighborhood streets. The next largest fund is the Parks and Recreation Fund, which makes up 22% of the special revenue funds and totals $10.7 million. Parks and Recreation will be discussed in detail at the April 23rd budget workshop. New this year was the creation of the Refuse and Recycling Fund to separately track the revenues and expenses related to the weekly curbside collection of refuse, yard waste, and recycling. This activity was previously tracked in the general fund under the Public Works activity. The creation of this separate fund will allow for more transparency, tracking the costs of this service as well as the taxes collected for funding. The major and local road funds both receive funding through gas and weight tax revenue, also often called Act 51 revenue from the state of Michigan. Road funding for 2025 is expected to remain about the same as last year. The city's share of proposed major road projects totals $7.8 million toward a total of $22 million in planned road construction in the 2025 season, including a $10 million project to reimagine Clinton River Road from Hayes to Canal. The city was awarded a $7 million federal grant toward this project. Other projects include resurfacing on 14, 17, and 18 Mile, all projects funded through a combination of federal aid, county, and city dollars. The total project value is over $10 million with a city share of just about $4 million. Safe Streets revenue continues to fund the repair and reconstruction of neighborhood streets. This year, Safe Streets revenue in combination with Act 51 revenue will fund the repair and reconstruction of 23 neighborhood streets. The Refuse and Recycling Fund primarily collects revenue through the refuse millage to fund the refuse collection contract. As you can see here, budgeted revenues and expenditures are equal, and if revenues are greater than expenditures, the fund balance will be carried forward and factored into the following year's millage. Total refuse costs increased $1.8 million over the prior year due to the full year of the new refuse contract, which includes automated cart collection and universal curbside recycling. The contract also includes the annual special collection events. The awarded contractor, Priority Waste, represented a $23 million savings over the next lowest bidder over the 10-year life of the contract. The average resident will pay $2.56 per week for curbside refuse, recycling, and yard waste collection. Next, the capital projects funds total $8.8 million and include the use of proceeds from road bonds as well as $6.8 million of investment in capital projects, equipment, and vehicles. Proposed vehicle purchases include 9 police patrol cars, a replacement ambulance, 2 dump trucks with snow plows, a chipper truck with a bucket, as well as 10 departmental city vehicles as part of the regular replacement plan. Proposed equipment includes ongoing replacement plans in the fire department for LifePack defibrillators and ambulance power cots, as well as an upgraded Knox box system, fire hose replacement, a Zodiac rescue boat, and an EMS gator. Proposed information technology equipment includes the annual PC replacement plan. 138 computers will be replaced this year, primarily in police and fire department. 14 mobile computers and modems will also be replaced on fire apparatus. And Dodge Park will become the first city park with wireless internet access. You can see here some of the other proposed projects. Some highlights include City Hall restroom renovations and door replacements, reconstruction of the P-loop on the Dodge Park Trail, and the repair of the Nature Center Bridge. Finally, the debt service funds total $8 million and provide funding for the debt payments on outstanding road bonds and bonds for the facilities renovations and the new DPW building. An update to the legal debt margin calculation in fiscal year 2023 audit shows the city is well within its legal debt margin. In fact, the city has used less than 1/4 of the amount allowable by law. And there are no new debt issuance planned in the upcoming fiscal year. 85% of annual city debt service has a dedicated funding source. Only $3 million of annual debt service is funding using general fund dollars, and this is for the debt on the facility renovations and the new DPW building. This debt service equates to only 2.4% of total general fund expenditures. Now on to the 4 department budgets we are reviewing tonight. First up, city administration. The city administration is made up of 8 separate departments with 64 full-time and 13 part-time staff. The departments include city management, city clerk, facilities maintenance and information technology, as well as financial services, treasury, assessing, and purchasing. The city administration budget totals $13.9 million, and the split between the individual offices is shown here. The city administration budget increased $670,000 or 5%. Personnel costs are up $390,000 due to contractual wage increases, as well as the addition of a deputy city clerk mid-year as part of succession planning. Election worker wage costs will also be higher this year due to the presidential election. The increase in other charges of $230,000 includes increased cost of building maintenance and security software. Next is the police department, which is the largest department, totaling 35% of the general fund budget. The department has 220 total employees in 4 divisions, and the budget totals $43.6 million. Over 92% of the budget is personnel costs. The police department budget increased by $2.5 million or 6%, which is almost entirely in personnel costs and consists of contractual wage increases and higher pension fund contributions and health insurance rates. A new animal control assistant position is also included. Highlights from the capital budget include replacement patrol and investigative vehicles, also equipment such as tactical vests, rifle-rated shields, and binoculars to be purchased using forfeiture funds. Next up is the fire department. The budget totals $26.5 million and represents 21% of the total general fund budget. The department has 3 divisions and includes 114 full-time and 1 part-time position. The department budget increased by $875,000 or 3.4%. And this increase is entirely in personnel costs and is due to contractual wage increases, as well as the full year cost of the assistant fire chief position and 2 new positions, the community risk reduction officer and the mobile integrated EMS health coordinator. The budget also includes a fire academy tuition reimbursement program to attract new candidates. And the offsetting reduction in other charges is due to grant-funded physicals in the prior year. A replacement ambulance is included in the proposed budget as part of the ongoing replacement plan. There are no engines included in the proposed budget. However, our current frontline fleet is in good shape with an average age of 5.4 years. A replacement for the 2012 engine, the oldest, is currently on order with expected delivery in late spring or summer 2025 and will be included in the 25-26 proposed budget. A replacement ladder truck is also on order with an estimated 3-year build-out time. The frontline ladder truck will be approximately 10 years old at that time. All in all, the fire apparatus fleet is in good shape. Proposed projects to enhance the fire department include the Clean Cab Project, which moves the breathing apparatus from inside the cabs to an outside compartment. This is a cancer prevention measure. The underground diesel tanks will be removed from Station 4 and replaced with 2 above-ground unleaded fuel tanks. This will decrease costs for fuel and yearly inspections, as well as reduce mileage on each squad. And the parking lot at Fire Station Number 1 will be completed, and the generator will be replaced at Fire Number 4. The final department for tonight is the Public Library. The budget totals $3.1 million. The library has 14 full-time and 26 part-time employees. The library budget increased $45,000 or 1.5%. The proposed budget includes the addition of a part-time programming specialist, improvements to the community space between the library and the police department, and 3D mapping software. Proposed capital includes additional seating, an interactive play table, collection management software, and the modernization of the freight elevator. Ms. Mayor Pro Tem, that concludes my overview for tonight, and I will pass it back to Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mrs. Varney. And continuing on, Mayor Pro Tem Sarowski, our next presentation will be from our IT director. Whether it's the new Water Smart software that allows residents to track their water usage daily, reducing water bills, the city's long list of e-government services, which is highlighted on a banner outside of the chambers, where residents can now conduct routine business from their homes. The city's IT department is continuing to provide cutting-edge technology. The city's AI task force, supported by IT, is hard at work identifying new technology that will further innovate city services. Speaking of innovation, we discussed a couple of years ago how drone technology is impacting city services. We're going to hear more about that shortly. I'm pleased now to introduce IT Director Steve Dion, who will discuss the many advancements and initiatives in his proposed departmental budget this year.
Thank you, City Manager Vanderpool. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Sarowski, Mr. Kazubski, and members of council. I'm very excited tonight to highlight the Information Technology 24-25 budget. Tonight I will be focusing on the GIS division within the Office of Information Technology. I will also be providing an overview of an exciting new initiative to expand Wi-Fi coverage in Dodge Park and the City Center campus. There have been several personnel changes in the Information Technology Department over the last few years. I wanted to highlight the updated org chart. An additional IT position was added in the 22-23 fiscal year, and we were very fortunate to add Ken LaChance to our department. Ken brings a wealth of IT knowledge and experience, and in his short time with the city has already proven to be a huge asset to the department. IT specialist John Tikkanen is our newest addition to the department, as he replaced a longtime employee that had recently retired. The GIS division also added a new employee in the current fiscal year. Arwa Hussein joined the Information Technology Department as our new GIS specialist in September of 2023. These additions would not be possible without the strong support from City Council and City Administration. I am very proud of this team and the good work they do on a daily basis. Information technology has always focused on planning. The 2030 Visioning Plan was the first step in the technology planning process. The visioning process focused on long-term planning, innovation, and collaboration. The visioning process highlighted the need for a formal 5-year technology plan. This comprehensive plan was developed over a period of 6 months and aligns with the City of Sterling Heights 2030 Visioning Plan. Information technology has completed all of the projects that were included in the 5-year technology plan. Now, information technology will focus on the recently completed 2040 Visioning Plan as we again look towards planning for the future. The GIS department started in the engineering department and was overseen by a civil engineer from 2006 till 2016. During that period, the civil engineer was able to draw every recorded tax parcel in the city from legal descriptions in Esri ArcMap. In 2016, the city participated in the SAW grant program. Grant funding allowed the city to hire AEW to collect all the underground utility data and overlay this data on a map. Additional work to create more GIS data sets such as zoning, roads, city buildings, subdivisions, condos, police, and fire district boundary maps were also created. The next step was to create public-facing GIS apps and OneView interactive map to showcase our GIS data. In 2017, the GIS duties moved to the IT department and a full-time GIS coordinator position was created. Sarah Mitchell is the GIS coordinator. She started with the city in 2019. Sarah is responsible for coordinating the development and maintenance of all geographic information system software and web applications. Sarah has focused on updating outdated web applications and creating new web applications. Arwa Hussein is the GIS specialist. Arwa is working on several projects, mostly in support of the Department of Public Works. Currently, she is working with the DPW and engineering to continually update all storm, sanitary, and water main data sets and feature classes from as-built drawings or field-located GPS points in our GIS database. She is also working with the DPW Road Division Supervisor, the tree inspector, and the engineering department to continually update the city tree inventory in our GIS database. Arwa is also working with DPW to create a street sign inventory. Nate Kaiser is our current GIS intern. We were very fortunate to get a graduate student that is completing his master's degree at the end of this month. Nate's main role in the GIS department is transferring sidewalk center lines from MicroStation to ArcMap for the development of the engineering department's GIS sidewalk program. Nate has shown great initiative on the project by re-engineering and redefining the attribution process with a Python script, which resulted in completing a section in half the time this process used to take. Other work duties during his internship include assisting the police department by updating the GIS crime map from a web map to a dashboard, and he also assisted the DPW by attaching 900 PDF reports and linking 2,350 sanitary and storm sewer CCTV videos to their respective feature lines. The current GIS environment was built in 2017. The environment has reached the end of its useful life and the software now needs to be upgraded. This project is scheduled for the 24-25 fiscal year. This upgrade will replace current hardware with new hardware. Server operating systems will be upgraded from 2012 to 2022 server. SQL database software will be upgraded from SQL 2014 to SQL 2022. And the Esri software will be upgraded from ArcMap 10.8 to ArcGIS Pro 3.2. The GIS department and the assessing department recently purchased the EagleView aerial software. Geospatial technology provides ortho, top-down aerial imagery, and oblique, 360-degree street-level imagery that can assist several City of Sterling Heights departments with discharging key functions and duties by providing high-resolution imagery. Offices and departments that will benefit from this technology include the offices of assessing, engineering, planning, building services, public works, and fire. Geospatial technology brings efficiencies to these offices and departments by affording a desktop digital view in lieu of having to send personnel into the field. The GIS department and the Office of Public Works were able to leverage the SAW grant to fund the collection of underground utility data. AEW was hired to gather GPS data points of underground storm, sanitary, and water main assets throughout the city. Since 2017, the three systems are up to date and continue to be updated from field notes, field-located GPS points, and as-built information. The OneView GIS interactive map was created in 2017. This map has been utilized by multiple city departments over the last 7 years. This map was also available to the public on the city website. The GIS department will be migrating from the current OneView map to more user-friendly collection of ArcGIS online maps. These web map applications will focus on specific topics. The interactive map had all of this information available, but layers needed to be turned on and off and often caused confusion for the end user. The GIS department is currently creating all the new web map applications that will replace the interactive map. Once completed, all these maps will be available on the maps page at sterlingheights.gov. The voting map has already been redesigned. The new voting map application includes instructions on the left-hand side on how to use the map. There is an address search feature and navigation tools that allow you to move around the map. Once zoomed in, if you click on a parcel, it provides the pole location and address for that parcel. The refuse collection map also has been redesigned. The new refuse collection map includes the same instructions. There is also an address search feature and navigation tools that allow you to move around the map. Zooming in allows you to click on a parcel and it provides the refuse collection date for that parcel. The GIS department is also creating story maps. ArcGIS story maps are built to work with geographic content created in ArcGIS. It is a web-based storytelling tool. The art map is a story map that features art located throughout Sterling Heights. Each location includes a picture of the art, the artist, and a description of the art piece. Another story map that the GIS department is currently redesigning is the police department's core map. The core map features videos, photos, and patrol districts. The GIS department is also in the process of creating dashboard maps. A dashboard map is a presentation of geographic information and data that allows you to monitor events, make decisions, inform others, and see trends. Dashboards are designed to display multiple visualizations that work together on a single screen. The crime map is currently being designed as a dashboard map. The police department crime map displays map locations of crimes that have occurred over the last 3 days. It shows a graph of crime categories and a number of incidents in each category. The map allows a user to click on the crime, which pulls up a window with more information about that incident. The GIS department also works with the Macomb County GIS department to ensure that the maps used by the police and fire departments are up to date. GIS also updates address information to the U.S. Postal Service and the AT&T 911 database portal. Future projects for the GIS department include a planning building development map, a sidewalk replacement map, completing the data modeling for underground utility assets, and a street sign map. Information technology is also working with the Parks and Rec department to install a public-private Wi-Fi network in Dodge Park and City Center campus. This network would allow the city private access to install endpoint devices like cameras and alarms. The public network would be separated and secured from the private network. The public Wi-Fi network would have the ability to scale up for large events. Large events in Dodge Park have created issues where the cellular networks are over capacity, leaving cell phones with very poor service or no service at all. Sterling Heights would issue an RFP to partner with an ISP that would install a fiber network to provide internet bandwidth and a wireless solution vendor that would provide network design, equipment, and ongoing support for the network. The Sterling Heights Information Technology Department is always looking at emerging technologies that can be used to improve service delivery. Sterling Heights IT was an early adopter of virtual and cloud-based technology. Sterling Heights was also one of the first municipalities to create a comprehensive cybersecurity plan. As we look to the future, we are already exploring how artificial intelligence can be integrated into current and future technology projects. Sterling Heights has already been using drone technology to assist public safety, and now we are looking to expand this emerging technology and lay the groundwork for the business and residential communities. I would now like to introduce Michael Helander, the President and CEO of Airspace Link, to highlight this exciting initiative.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Council. Let me tell you a little bit about Airspace Link. We don't build drones. We don't necessarily fly them, but we are the safety systems here in the United States for integrating drones into the national airspace and into our communities through our digital infrastructure. Think of us as a Google Maps for drones, but we work with the federal, state, and local governments to start to put in the digital infrastructure required to do the safe integration. We currently have two agreements and contracts with the FAA. One is we are the Before You Fly application here in the United States. When you click to fly, we are the application listed on the FAA website. So we provide that service service on behalf of the FAA to make sure residents, businesses are understanding where they can and can't fly. Our second contract is to authorize flights. We're currently integrated into 730 airports across the United States. That is to authorize commercial operations near airport. They're called Part 107. Further coordination when they're very close to an airport. We keep track of all the major football games and events and create temporary flight restrictions on behalf of the FAA on how to fly here in the U.S. So think of that as what we call the federal highway system. We've now started to drop in our platform into, for example, here in Michigan Department of Transportation, looking at how they would integrate drones from a state level. And now, most importantly, is we're starting to integrate into communities. One of the fastest growing segments in the drone industry this year is supposed to be state and local governments, up about 300% in the use of drones, but also in the supporting of safety systems within their community. As a company, we're managing about 40,000 registered drone pilots within our platform and many more anonymous ones using our platform. So we have a significant use of drones that we can monitor here across the United States, but also here in the city of who's flying where and when. To give you an example of communities that have started integrating drones, I thought it was a good idea to show. This is the city of Ontario, California. When we met them about 3.5, 4 years ago, they had one drone pilot and one drone. 2 weeks ago, we were on site with them, and they now have 60 drone pilots on staff with 30 drones supporting public safety. Drones as a first responder. They now have the drones sitting inside their vehicles in case of an accident and analysis of traffic accidents. It's being used for roof inspections. It's being used for swift water rescue, water sampling, all different types of use cases across. It's pretty amazing to watch, and they're now an award-winning community that now has started attracting businesses, and there's a case study on them doing drone deliveries and building drone-friendly communities where they actually do food deliveries to people with mobility challenges and beer delivery and a few others. But pretty exciting that they've been able to go from just nothing to be able to support internal operations and economic development and attraction of businesses into their community. So Michigan is on a pretty significant path. We've been supporting the state. They do want to be one of the top or leaders in advanced air mobilities here in the United States. They had several announcements over the past 4 months. One is called the Detroit Advanced Aerial Innovation Region, that is supported by Michigan Central and MDOT to support the integration of advanced operations. There's $17 million that were approved at the state level to support and the integration of drones through grants. That is the one that you see on the upper left, which is one of our operations where we're doing medical delivery between Beaumont Hospital in Royal Oak and Birmingham for several weeks instead of using vehicles. There's significant grants sitting behind that as well that can be accessed through communities that are starting up their drone programs. To give you more examples here in the state, from that advanced capability that they're putting in, several of the cities throughout Wayne County, I think we have 18 cities and townships and several counties and some that aren't on this map that are also integrating drones for themselves. And some are starting to put advanced systems for detection and drones as a first responder within their communities. There you go. Thank you. For example, Romulus has significantly improved their airspace. They actually opened up the airspace for 5,000 residents and a high school to create a STEM program that they're able to get a grant to start training kids on how to use drones and GIS to start job retraining for the amount of drones that are required here. When we look at a community, it can be pretty overwhelming on how to get started. And when I looked at the mission statement and vision of Sterling Heights, it aligned well with a lot of the things that the drone technology can provide, whether, through safety, through innovating living within the community and how those might be integrated, safety, and sustainability with in the community. So when we look at public safety, it mentions responsive and proactive. One of the reasons that Romulus moved forward is because they had a train derailment and they couldn't get their drone in the air for an hour. And they weren't able to mobilize, so they had to bring in a helicopter. Now they're prepared. Now they've gone through, put in the processes in place to be able to be more ready to respond to these situations. Environmentally friendly, you could say that it's electrification through using some of these drones versus a vehicle. Educational, recreational, drone parks are starting to pop up for residents to start to learn how to get a Part 107 drone pilot license. We need drone pilots, and it is required if you want to fly for money that you need to have a drone pilot license. And not just a license, but also know how to use a drone, and having a safe place to fly would be something we'd love to see in Sterling Heights. Because remember, we are the ones at the front end of the FAA, and they ask us, where can we fly within a community? We usually have to call up that city and say, where can we fly? And they're not sure where. So being able to have that, neighborhoods that are prepared, like I said, drone-friendly communities or not, making sure that we have an understanding as a community of what would go over well. So each of these have all different types of benefits from each department, from building inspection to linear inspection to public safety to fire to search and rescue to disaster to looking for missing people in parks. Drone technology has been proven, and a lot of communities are making those investments. But some of the exciting items that are happening in Detroit that we are going to be moving out, these drone technologies have been being tested and are now being, I think I clicked on the right button there, and is that companies like this, we're bringing 10 of them into Detroit to do some final testing, and then communities that are prepared would be able to start to use or be prepared, at least if they wanted to start to introduce more advanced drone technology. What you're seeing here is a company called Alphabet Wing. It's an 11-pound drone that can carry 4 pounds, and it can work within urban areas for any types of delivery, whether it be cargo delivery, parts delivery between supply chains. In this case, it's Walgreens. Being able to send prescriptions directly to residents. And what happens here is when a community is prepared, they're able to help support where would a takeoff and landing be? What would emergency landing and takeoff locations? How would they fly through the community? Where are the areas that would be least affecting noise and things like this? And so this drone is an example of one of these operations. It never actually lands. It just goes to a charging station when needed and does a delivery, pickup, and takeoff. So these are the types of technologies that are being developed and deployed in portions of Michigan right now, and communities that are going to be prepared to want to test some of these technologies. Oh. Thank you. So when we looked at these communities that we're working with, it is extremely complex. Where to start? It's not you just buy software, you buy a bunch of drones. There's actually a process that we've worked with on a national level, and that is to help integrate drones from a recreational all the way up to air taxis. And we've taken that process and put it into a roadmap. So many of those cities that we mentioned just here in Michigan, the 25, have all been through or are going through an assessment and building out a roadmap for their city. All slightly different depending on the industry and the community, but those are a way to get started and not just going out and buying technology. This puts the community into a process and a roadmap, thinking about policy, how do we use it internally, how do we promote it, how do we handle privacy, is there an ordinance, and that is the way that we're looking at for the community of Sterling Heights, that there's several locations here. We are working with a lot of communities in the state, but we have not started yet in the county yet. So Sterling Heights would be one of the first communities to start blazing these trails. And there's several different options that the city can choose from as simple as doing a UAS or drone readiness assessment and building out a roadmap, figuring out what is best for the city, or start to actually build in the software as it's being assessed, putting the technology and pieces in place to move the city forward as quickly as possible so they can take advantage of some of the opportunities that are coming down from the state. And with that, that is our drone integration.
And Mayor, I just wanted to highlight, as you well know, with our thousands of businesses, many of which are small businesses, and many large ones too, like Amazon and Stellantis and Ford Motor Company. And you can imagine the variety of supplies and packages they're sending out every day all across the community and the region. And to be able to have this infrastructure from a community economic development vantage point, you could see the benefits quite clearly, not to mention all the uses as Mike indicated internally, some of which we have been utilizing, but we really haven't been able to get to the next level. So what is in the proposed budget is a UAS readiness assessment, level 1 for $10,000, so that we can proceed through that assessment, whereby Airspace Link will meet with every single department, talk about their uses. You can see now we've been talking about drone technology in the library, and a couple of years ago it seemed like just a pipe dream, but this technology is being utilized today in cities across the country. So it can be a reality in fairly short order, and it's good to be on the cutting edge with this, good to be the first community in Macomb, and good to see where it's going to take us. So just in conclusion, there's a lot going on in our information technology department and a lot of new and exciting initiatives. And Mayor, it goes without saying, Sterling Heights is blessed to have superior police and fire services in the community. Residents live in one of the safest communities in the country. Whether it's fighting fires, responding to EMS calls, or fighting crime, the men and women in the police and fire departments are highly trained and are provided state-of-the-art equipment and technology to excel in their positions. And the community payoff in Sterling Heights speaks for itself. And so we're pleased to start out the public safety discussion with our police chief, Dale Wojciechowski, highlighting all the collaborative innovation projects outlined in the budget for fiscal year 25.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderpool, Mayor Taylor, and members of council. It's my honor to present the 24-25 Police Department Budget Review. We're going to be covering several topics tonight, one of them being the new proposed mobile command center, an update on our animal control officers and some new position that we have, an update on Flock and the great success we've had with it. And we're also going to be discussing a jail renovation study and what to do with our now closed jail, our directed patrol update, and a community wellness strategic plan. Starting off, our current mobile command center, the affectionately known as the EM50, the movie Stripes there with Bill Murray, that was a military tactical vehicle hidden inside of a recreational RV. And the reason I show that is because our current command vehicle really was a recreational RV. It was purchased in 2005 with federal grants after 9/11 happened. Sterling Heights and Macomb County also received a very similar vehicle. Macomb County Sheriff just deadlined their recreational vehicle / command center. And again, that was a recreational grade motorhome. Electronics, communication, and cameras are all now obsolete. The slide outs are broken. The HVAC system constantly was breaking, and there was limited space within the motorhome for a true command center. We looked at this last year, budgeting for a command vehicle. We had $300,000 kind of earmarked. We looked at some trailerable command centers that were in trailers. Number one, very difficult to hook up the trailer, move it, and then we found out $300,000 was laughable when it came to pricing. So we're moving in a different direction. This is our EM50 back in better days during Sterling Fest. That's a 2005 Winnebago. Again, the Sheriff's Department has the exact same vehicle that they deadlined this last year. This is the inside of that vehicle. This is our crisis negotiation team during a barricaded gunman situation. You can see how cramped the quarters are. Tube television, VCRs, and outdated radio communication. This is a new command vehicle, and it's purpose-built, commercial-grade command center, diesel engine, diesel generators, all aluminum chassis, upgraded cameras, communication, and electronics. Bigger conference rooms, meeting areas, and the exterior monitors for larger briefings and camera and drone displays. As you can see, this vehicle has 2 slide outs, which effectively doubles the size of the unit. On the outside of the vehicle, we have display ports that you can watch drone footage. This would have been very helpful. We had a Christmas Day fire a few years ago, Council, if you remember. We launched our drone. We had a live feed, and we were all huddled in the back of a Chevy Tahoe watching a 9-inch monitor as fire department was trying to figure out where to put suppression efforts. This now could be displayed right there on that 60-inch television on the side of the command vehicle. This is the inside large conference room, multiple monitors, dry erase boards, a full dispatch facility, including emergency communications and radios. And also, if you look to the right there, that is a drone on a tether. So our old command vehicle had a mast arm with a camera on it. So basically a glorified pole with a camera on it. These new command vehicles, you can actually have a drone that gets housed on the roof of the vehicle and has a cable attached to it, and you can launch the drone off the roof, and the cable gives it power and unlimited, you can run it for hours and hours and hours, and you can launch the drone 50, 80, 100 feet in the air to see everything around the mobile command vehicle, and when it's done, you pull it back, the cable retracts, the drone stores and charges. So really unbelievable the technology these things have now. An update on our animal control department. Animal control runs have been up drastically. We've seen a 55% increase in animal control runs from 2018 to 2023. Tickets that we've issued from animal control have also increased in that time frame by 83%. So to say there's been an increase in calls is an understatement. What caused that? Well, one of the biggest things, the pandemic, caused a lot of people to buy animals they should not have bought. And then those animals all had to be adopted out, given up to different adoption agencies and animal welfare groups. And also our Safe Home Task Force, we're kind of a victim of our own success. We started our Safe Home Task Force, and we've done great work, but we find with a lot of hoarding cases, those people also hoard animals, whether it's cats or dogs. It's very difficult to take in 15, 20, 30 cats, 7 dogs. What do you do with these animals? Very, very complicated. And it also came to us through the ACO officers themselves. We have 3 full-time ACO officers. They came to me. We had a couple sit-down meetings with the Assistant City Manager, Jeff Pohorsky, and they talked about being overworked, quite frankly, and they talked about the workload. They have to see some of the worst things ever with animal neglect cases, and they have to deal with complicated cases with neighbors and residents that are highly agitated, and they were asking for help. And that's what we're proposing in this coming budget year. We're proposing a new animal control administrative assistant position that we've never had before. They would be mostly indoors and not out in the trucks. They would handle a lot of the phone complaints, the see, click, fix complaints, follow up on runs, kennel duties, which is down in the basement, feeding of the dogs, walking of the animals, adoption services, working with nonprofits, medicine delivery, medical needs, transporting animals, rescue placement, dog bite cases, neglect cases, emails, animal hoarding. The list goes on and on and on. And that's what we envision this person to do, which would free up our animal control officers to be in their trucks, driving the city and responding to residents' calls as promptly as possible. Also for next year, we're proposing raising a lot of our animal fees. And it's not just to make money, but we're actually trying to recoup all cost. We haven't looked at those fees in a couple of years, and we realized that many of the fees were actually below what the actual cost for that service was. So we're going to be adjusting those fees to relatively reasonable prices to cover the costs. This, if you haven't seen it, our newly built out police station, we completely redid our kennel area. That's downstairs in the basement of the garage, and that is a fully certified, licensed and inspected by the Michigan Department of Agriculture every single year. We're a fully certified kennel service. And that's actually was today. We have a pit bull there in the far right cage, but that is our entire kennel service. We take on average every single day up to 4 animals on average to our kennels. We simply don't have the room to house that many animals because it takes days to get them either find the owners or adopt them out. I've called Macomb County Animal Control. Their facility is completely full. They do not have room for Sterling Heights. I've talked to Jeff Randazzo and the county executive Mark Hackle about this concern, and they told me that they're proposing building a new facility which would be double, if not triple, the size that they currently have at the county. So we're hoping they go through with that, and we hope we have a better place to house our animals going into the future. An update on our Flock license plate reader camera. We have 20 of the 22 cameras that were budgeted for finally installed. And some of you on council might be like, why are we talking about Flock? Wasn't that like 2 years ago? Yes, it was. And it's taken this long to get the cameras installed. We thought it was going to be a relatively quick process. It turned out, however, that Macomb County Road Department and the state of Michigan all wanted special permits for these cameras. And the permitting process was long, very lengthy. Our first 4 cameras were installed in October of 2022 on city roads. Those were easy, no permits needed because there are roadways. The next 9 went in on county roads, and that was quite a delay because of county permitting process, and that was August of last year. 2 more cameras just went up on county roads in February. 5 cameras were installed on state roadways just last month in March, and that was again going through the state permitting process. And our final 2 cameras we're waiting on are going to go on federal highways, M53. So we're waiting on federal highway permits for their final 2 cameras. So has Flock and license plate reader been successful? Absolutely. I'll highlight a couple cases here. April 16th, 2023, officers on patrol received an alert from Flock. And if you don't know how this works, the officer has the Flock logo, the icon in his car. He turns it on, just double clicks on it. If a car that is wanted, that is stolen or wanted for any reason, is in the area of that police officer's car, an alarm goes off. And the officer can see on GPS where that car was seen on a Flock camera. So then the officer drives to that area to see if they can find that car that just popped up on a Flock camera. And we've had a lot of hits already. And this is exactly what happened in this case. The vehicle was located, pulled over. The suspect was arrested for having a stolen vehicle. An inventory search of the car revealed several stolen credit cards. And we believe this person was breaking into cars, stealing purses and wallets, and had multiple IDs and credit cards. A warrant was requested, submitted, and authorized, and the subject was convicted due to Flock. October 23, larceny in a building. The House of Chan, Chinese food restaurant. They stole the tip jar. Might sound pretty minor. We would have never solved this case. They had a partial description of the car. We entered that partial description into Flock. We got a suspect identified. We went through a body camera footage from a prior traffic stop with this person, and it all lined up. And that person was arrested, a 4-year felony. He was convicted of a 4-year felony of larceny in a building. November 20th of 2023, this was a great case. So the officers received the stolen vehicle hit on Flock at 1:40 in the morning. The officers located that vehicle and 2 other suspicious cars parked in an area backed into this parking lot near a high-end shoe store that had been robbed twice. A vehicle pursuit ensued, a foot chase then happened, and then one of the suspects tried to carjack a passing motorist. One suspect was found hiding under some bushes after a foot chase. The suspect had an extensive criminal history, including armed robbery, carjacking, felony firearm, and possession of controlled substance. The suspect was charged with 3rd-degree fleeing and eluding, receiving, concealing stolen property, and being a habitual offender, 4th offense. In the final case, a missing person from March of this year. A resident reports that her sister may have disappeared with 2 children. She was very concerned about her. When the sister called, a male answered the phone and said they need $10,000 to get the sister back. We're very concerned. We used Flock. One of our sergeants pulled it up. We saw that the car was heading southbound down to Detroit. We did more Flock hits and a cell phone ping. We found out where the sister was. We found her to be safe, and she was taken in for a mental health check later that day. LPR, again, it's all about transparency. The day we went, before we got this and council approved it, we talked about being transparent. This is on the left there. That is on our website. Talks about everything about Flock, how many cameras we have, retention periods. And as you know, on our website, it talks about Flock. 30 days of data is held. No live videos recorded. LPR data is owned by Sterling Heights Police Department. We don't sell it to any other third-party vendors. It's end-to-end encrypted. All officers have to have special training before they use Flock. They have to have access, a law enforcement reason to access that data, and they have to type that reason right into the search bar. And again, our transparency dashboard is posted for all to see. Moving on to our jail renovation study. As you know, our jail was closed on December 23rd, 2021. And now all prisoners are lodged at the Macomb County Jail. The transition's been fantastic. We've avoided a lot of problems, medical problems, lodging problems, and babysitting people at hospitals has all been remedied by this. Now the issue is we have 7,000 square feet of space that I need. We have no more office space in the building. We are completely built out. So what do we do with this jail? In fact, the second social worker that we're currently hiring, we had no office space for, so we converted a closet on our operations main floor, took everything out of the closet and turned it into an office. So that's where we currently stand with office space. But our current training room that we have that with the building redo is small, really not designed for modern scenario training. But costly, the demolition will be costly, a lot of cinder block, a lot of steel, a lot of plexiglass, and that all has to be ripped out of there. Right now, we're using the jail for overflow storage of cabinets and training gear and equipment. What could be? The picture on the right is the Royal Oak Police Department. Some of you know, Royal Oak got a brand new police department. I was able to tour that facility, really state of the art. Training rooms, breakout rooms, workout rooms, just a fantastic building. And on the left is a multi-purpose room from another agency here in Michigan with permanent matted floors so we can do our ground fighting and all of that training. As it stands right now, when we have some mats that we have available to put into our training room. To do that, to make it look like the picture on the left, we have to remove 20 tables from the room and 40 chairs every single time, stack those in the hallway, bring all the mats in, and then bring everything back in after it's done. So again, on the left, this is Milo. We have a shooting simulator, use of force simulator on the left. If I want to use our Milo shooting simulator, I have to remove every table and chair from that room in order to set that up. It is a pain. And on the right is some virtual reality training that we're looking into purchasing. Again, virtual reality has come a long, long way in doing scenario training and de-escalation training. Moving on to the Directed Patrol Unit. Council, thank you. When we closed our jail, you guys authorized us to hire 7 officers. We've been putting those 7 officers to great use. 5 of them being the Directed Patrol Unit. That started in July of 2022 after we closed the jail. Currently, this unit is ran by Sergeant Lamar Cashot. And in the 20 months they've been in existence, they've had a tremendous work output. In 20 months, 555 felony arrests, 939 misdemeanor arrests, 2,656 tickets, and 390 narcotics arrests. They've taken 70 guns off the streets, and they've patrolled residential areas for 2,825 hours. So what does that look like every single month? Every month they make 75 arrests, just those 5 officers. They write 132 tickets, and they patrol residential areas for 141 hours every single month. Some recent highlights. This is just the first 3 months, January, February, March of 2024. They've made 10 felony arrests. 3 of those were for carrying a concealed weapon found in residential areas in Sterling Heights. They've made 6 misdemeanor arrests. 1 of those was in a subdivision for drunk driving. They've issued 222 tickets. 49 of those have been in residential areas. And they've spent 350 hours patrolling residential areas, on track to break 1,400 hours by year's end. Other recent road patrol trends are OWI arrests. Were pretty low back in 2021 with 126 OWI arrests. And look at what's happened here over the last 2 years. We've increased that by twofold, up to 257 arrests last year. And you might say, how did that happen? Well, Sergeant Dubé helped put together an OWI enforcement team. Specially trained officers arrive at drunk driving stops, and they help take over that run, make sure that all the paperwork's done correctly, search warrants if they need blood. Drunk driving arrests can be highly complicated, take hours of road time, and some officers, that's outside their skill set or the hours involved with a drunk driving arrest, and it's intimidating. But we've trained our officers. We have this OWI enforcement team now that goes out there, and they're much more willing to get involved in these drunk arrests, and it's really paid dividends in the number of OWI arrests we've made. The other concerning trend that I wish wasn't occurring, but it is. It's not here in Sterling Heights, not only here in Sterling Heights, but it's across Macomb County and the state, is the alarming number of guns that our officers are finding on police runs. Every time we arrest somebody, they have a gun in the car. It's almost guaranteed. When I started here almost 30 years ago, it was almost unheard of. You got a gun on the road, that was a novelty that just didn't happen. And now we see it every couple days. In 2021, we made 43 arrests that involved guns, illegal guns. And then last full year, 2023, 125 arrests involving illegal firearms, most of the time those being inside of a car. And a lot of those guns are ghost guns. We've had multiple ghost guns, which are guns that are manufactured. You buy the parts online, you put them together at home. They're untraceable. There's no serial numbers for them. We've already had multiple ghost guns from arrests that we've made, and many, many guns, the serial numbers have been scratched off, so impossible to trace. A lot of those come from B&Es of homes. This was interesting. This picture, this is the Overland Park, Kansas Critical Incident Response Team. And as you saw on the news here just recently, Lieutenant Bassinelli and Families Against Narcotics set up cross-training with these folks. They all came from Overland Park, Kansas. They flew into Michigan here to Sterling Heights. They wanted to look at our quick response team that we've got a lot of recognition for here in the state, and our redirect program. Then we found out that they had a critical incident response team. And in this picture, those are police officers and clinicians, social workers. That is part of a team that they have in Overland Park, Kansas. An officer drives with a social worker for their entire shift, and they go to all mental health calls. This is a lot. This is a lot of training, a lot of money. It was fascinating to hear the success this unit has had. Absolutely mind-boggling, the work that they are doing and how successful this unit's been. But getting into community wellness, we were way ahead of the curve here in Sterling Heights by hiring one of the first social workers for the city and the police department. There was only a couple in the estate when we went live with our program back in 2021. And on the right there, Stacy Reed is our current social worker. And you can see since we got up and running with our social worker program, we've handled 296 cases. Elder protection and the generic mental health have been the top two cases for our social worker. The Safe Home Task Force has been leading the way in Macomb County and the state on dealing with complex hoarding cases, compassionately and professionally. So they've been doing a lot of great work. Equally concerning is the number of mental health calls for service. You can see in 2019, 2,371 calls that involved mental health. Last year, 2023, 3,065. That is a 26% increase in mental health calls between 2019 and 2023. What caused that? A lot of things. The pandemic definitely did not help. When you socially isolate an entire country, people lose coping abilities. They find alcohol, they find drugs. And for the first time ever in this country in 2021, we had over 100,000 people die from drug overdoses. It is a real problem, and there's no sign of it letting up. So what do you do? From the police end of things, we have 4 response models in the United States that are currently being practiced. The first one, I call it just normal, just doing what we always do. You send a patrol officer to a run with someone in mental distress. And depending on the officer you send, it might be a really good outcome or a really bad outcome. The second version is the crisis intervention team, and this is having specially trained officers. You send them to CIT training. It's a 40-hour class, and those officers respond to mental health calls. Still a relatively new idea, and about 15% of departments are practicing this. Then you have the co-responder teams, like you saw in that picture with Overland Park, Kansas. That is a law enforcement officer or a firefighter driving with a clinician to go to different mental health calls. Highly effective, but costly. And then you have a fourth version, is a mobile crisis team. And that would basically be if someone's in crisis, you would call someone at the county level or a regional team, and that would show up with clinicians, social workers, mental health professionals. They would show up at the house without any police or fire. But if they needed police or fire, they would call for security purposes. So what do we need to do moving forward? Well, I think we need an overall community wellness strategic plan. It must cover the police department, the fire department, and city departments. Our community partners at the county and the state level must be engaged. Elected leaders need to be briefed on the problem we're experiencing and the need for more funding. I just had a lunch today with Congressman John James. He's well aware of this problem. We talked about the funding issue, so he's going to be looking into it as well. Our crisis intervention training, again, that 40-hour course for select officers, we're going to be looking at that as well. And also on the horizon is the new Macomb County building, their $228 million Central Intake and Assessment Center, the SEAC. The SEAC is designed to provide comprehensive intake and assessment services, focusing on specific needs of inmates with mental health concerns. Construction of the new 177,000 square foot center remains on track for completion in 2027. In a minute, you're going to hear from the fire chief regarding a balanced approach to community health from the fire department's perspective. But with that, that completes my budget overview. Thank you.
And Mayor and Council, it goes without saying how complex policing is in today's world. And you can see community-oriented policing is certainly a model for Sterling Heights and paying big dividends. It's also been a really exciting year for the fire department with the completion of its 5-year strategic plan, the risk assessment that's currently underway, priority medical dispatching, of which a pilot program is about to start, and many other innovations enhancing fire and emergency response services to the community. 2 new positions, additional equipment, and unique collaboration, here again centered on innovation, are among the few topics Fire Chief Kevin Edmond will now talk about in the fire department's budget.
Good evening, Mayor Taylor, members of council, Mr. Vanderpool, and Mr. Koszewski. I'm honored here tonight to present to you an overview of the 24-25 proposed budget and to also provide you some department highlights that we have done in the last year. So the topics that I'm going to discuss tonight are some department highlights, cost recovery ordinance update that we instituted in April of 24, GMET progress in that new program, a community risk assessment that we're currently going through right now, a proposed mobile integrated health that would coincide with a strategic mental health plan and to make a safer and more healthy community, and then the project of the strategic plan and the progress that we've made. So the system of care that we offer in our community. To be responsible to the community, the fire department provides an effective and efficient service and works collaboratively with many different agencies to improve the health and safety of our community. As the fire chief, I am very proud of the system of care that we have for our residents. Our police and fire departments work collaboratively to provide a very high level of service. Seen here is a recent awards ceremony in which the personnel who responded to an unresponsive 1-year-old child who was not breathing provided this great system of care that saved this child's life. The police officer was the first on the scene that initiated CPR. The fire department paramedics arrived and provided advanced life support that needed to be provided in this critical case. This child is expected to make a full recovery because of the outstanding system of care that we provide to our residents. We also have a very high-performing EMS system that provides residents care. Ischemic heart disease is the leading cause of mortality in the Sterling Heights community. ST myocardial infarction is one of the most common types of heart attacks that results in cardiac arrest. Early recognition and quick transport to a heart catheterization lab is the standard of care for the best outcomes. As you can see on the slide, our system is shown in red. You can see that we are higher performing both in the state and nationally in the delivery of 12 leads within 10 minutes and on-scene time less than 15 minutes to get these people to the cath lab. Another collaborative effort with the police department is our tactical EMS unit. We recently partnered with the police in establishing our tactical EMS special response team. During SWAT activations, the tactical EMS team is responsible for medical care of the SWAT members and civilians. This partnership helps the city prepare for the ever-increasing threats our community could face with active shooter events. The 24-25 budget, we will once again partner with the police department to receive funding for more advanced medical training for our tactical paramedics. Recruitment. We recently enhanced our recruitment process by teaming up with Human Resource Department. We recently held a recruitment open house in February where 51 people attended. This last application period and testing process, we have a very strong candidate list, and we believe that this is a direct correlation with this community open house that we held. I want to thank the members of the department and human resource staff for all the effort that they put into this event. I'd like to provide an update now on the progress of the cost recovery ordinance that was put in place. And I want to thank council for the support that they gave the fire department in doing this. The cost recovery ordinance is working. Even though we have some spikes in the lift assist, overall you can see through the red dashed line that the trend is downward. The sharp decrease in low acuity calls happened with a push in public education in the summer of last year, where the training chief, Kelly Bergen, and EMS coordinator, Eric McKenzie, went out to every elderly assisted facility and educated them on when to call 911 and when they should call private EMS. We also included the Universal Ambulance Company in that process, so they could be there to answer any of the questions. Based on our efforts, we have seen a reduction in our EMS calls. And with our cost recovery ordinance and future planned programs, we anticipate this downward trend to continue. Now on to the GMT's Ambulance Supplemental Program. There's two Medicaid supplemental programs that exist in the country. One's and this covers for Medicaid calls because the average reimbursement that we receive is only 25 to 30% of the actual costs that occur. Currently in Michigan, we have the provider tax, which is commonly referred to QAP, and the program that we're working on right now is a certified public expenditure, or more commonly known as the Ground Emergency Medical Transport Program. So in implementing this program in Michigan, we've partnered with many agencies that you can see on the slide. We continue to communicate the importance of this program to the Michigan public EMS providers and legislators. We recently conducted a webinar with MML to communicate the importance of this program to many providers in the state of Michigan. We're also working with legislative partners in securing the funding for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to implement this program in this next fiscal year. We also have created draft legislation for the implementation of this program and are working right now with state legislators to introduce a budget adjustment to get the program started. So how does this program work? Because of our increasing call volumes and our aging population, there's many needs that we have in the fire and EMS service because of the costs that we face. We now have challenges in recruitment. We now have to sell ourselves to individuals that we never had to do before. So this program will provide needed resources for us. The program works by covering part of the uncompensated costs. The program will allow us to capture about 63 cents of every dollar of uncompensated costs. So what does this actually mean for Sterling Heights? As you can see in this example, our average cost per transport to provide it is about $1,600. Our Medicaid reimbursement is about $300. So that leaves an uncompensated cost of about $1,300. We have an average of 2,000 Medicaid transports every year. This relates to an uncompensated cost of $2.6 million. With the GMET program, we can recover 63 cents on every one of those dollars for a total of $1,638,000. So what will we do with this money? The additional funding will allow us to hire additional staff, a peak ambulance transport unit to respond to calls, mobile integrated health EMS coordinator that is dealing with like EMS prevention, and then community risk reduction that will deal with fire prevention aspects. So the mobile integrated health EMS coordinator allows for the increased EMS prevention tasks. They will be tasked with prevention activities, data management, and their efforts to help reduce the risk that the community faces through their health care. The community risk reduction officer allows for increased fire prevention tasks and will also help kind of continuing our community risk assessment program from year to year. So what will be some of the job functions of these programs? The job task of the health integrated or the mobile integrated EMS health coordinator, they will have a medical background. They'll do some statistical analysis of our current EMS calls and why the reasons they're being called, develop strategies and effective options, work in collaboration with the city social workers and the community risk officer to improve, the ultimate outcome is to improve the community health and wellness. Now, what would the community risk reduction officer do? They'll do a statistical analysis of fire risk, develop strategies and effective options, develop community risk reduction programs. That might be education, that might be different types of inspections and things like that. And they'll help with high risk and high profile inspections. So what is community risk reduction? Community risk reduction is the process to identify and prioritize local risk, followed by the integration and strategic investments of resources, either in emergency response or prevention, to reduce their impact. Commonly, we use the 5 E's in community risk reduction. We're looking at what we can engineer to make the world a safer place, how enforcement plays a role in making the world a safer place, how education can make a role in making the world a safer place, and economic incentives. The very last part of that plan is the emergency response. If all those other 4 E's fail, then we have to respond to the emergency. So now the community risk assessment that's going on right now, they will look at the social vulnerability of the city of Sterling Heights, the location of our calls, EMS and fire, the reasons for those calls, and the new and existing buildings that's taking place, and the occupancies that are there now and into the future. So the community risk assessment, they'll be looking at all these things on the slide to help develop our program going forward. They'll look at the social vulnerability index that I talked about against the current services and develop and make suggestions for a staffing deployment model that will offer recommendations to help us create a system of emergency response and risk reduction that's both effective and efficient for Sterling Heights based on community expectations and the ability to fund. So a lot of the things that they're looking at is the critical tasking, effective fire response force, risk analysis, the workload of our units, innovations that we might be able to come up with, and then our response and where our stations are located. And this all comes back with community expectations and the ability to fund it. Now, the new program that we're looking to kind of get started is this mobile integrated health thing. One of the primary goals of this program is to reduce the response to super users. We have 161 residents that accounted for over 1,100 transports each year. We need to understand the reasons that they're calling for EMS and how we can help them in stabilizing their life and not being in the hospital so much. So the whole idea of this is to create better patient care, better population for health, and do it at a lower cost. One of the other things we're going to be doing is increasing our capabilities. Because of the increase in pedestrian pathways and the use of the Clinton River, we're increasing our response capabilities to provide emergency services when a problem occurs. In the 24-25 budget, we're going to purchase an EMS golf cart and a Zodiac boat. We currently have 9 personnel trained in swiftwater rescue. The department is also creating a training program to help keep fireground and overall incident management skills sharp with our command officers through the purchase of a computer simulation software program. The other thing that we're constantly doing is trying to reduce our cancer risk reduction. With constantly pursuing AFG fundings, we've been able to establish cancer screening for our firefighters and getting a second set of turnout gears for them. The actual testing that took place this last year caught 3 cases of early stage cancer that we could have taken care of right away so it wouldn't be long-term issues for those individuals. We're also looking at how we can decontaminate after a fire. We will do gross decontamination, which you can see in the picture there, and then we're also looking at this clean cab concept. The old way is we would store the air packs inside the vehicles. Those are the air packs that are usually the very hardest to clean. There's a lot of nooks and crannies to them. And by storing these in compartments and also providing compartment space for the dirty turnout gear until they get back to the fire station to get it cleaned, and giving them a second set allows them to keep in service and be able to respond to emergencies. Our strategic plan update. Through this creation of the fire department's very first strategic plan, we've been able to make significant progress in this last year. We have now split the fire chief's assistant chief's position to an operational and administrative position. And then we also are targeting to do the medical priority dispatch with implementation of July 1. This will help us be able to respond the right resources to the right calls. We also, during this time, created a pilot program, when possible and staffing allowed, to run a second ambulance out of Station 1. The crews did notice relief, and we're planning on how to implement that program moving forward with the additional GMET dollars that we're looking to get. One of the other things I'd like to talk about briefly is in the strategic plan. The strategic plan called for creating an apparatus replacement. We currently have an ambulance apparatus replacement. We're working with city administration to fully develop our fire apparatus replacement plan. Like the finance director said, we have one unit that's going to be being built starting this year, and then we're in line for the ladder truck. Unfortunately, it is taking 3 years to build this heavy apparatus and also the ambulances. The last 2 ambulances that we bought were demos. They weren't of our design. We had to look for what we had out there. So these are things that we have to account for because of what happened during the pandemic. We've also developed a grading scale moving forward to make sure that we're replacing these apparatus when they need to be replaced. And then the last thing is that we're doing is the new positions were added with recommendations from the strategic plan will allow for better data analysis and the development of strategies using those 5 E's to reduce the community risk. The community risk assessment and standard of cover will further enhance our department. We're currently developing a succession plan because we are due to have an assistant chief and a fire marshal who are going to be retiring in the second half of next year. As you can see from my presentation, there's a lot of hard work going on in the fire department. I could not be prouder of the women and men of the fire department. That concludes my budget presentation for tonight. Thank you.
And Mayor, we just have one last presentation. We've saved that for the library. And our superstar library director, Tammy Turgeon, is now going to talk about some of the exciting programs highlighted in the library's proposed budget.
Good evening, Mayor Taylor, members of City Council, Mr. Vanderpool, and Mr. Koszewski. As the Library Director, I'm proud to speak with you tonight about the Sterling Heights Public Library and how the 2025 budget will provide us with the ability to uphold our mission, which is encouraging innovative living through literacy, discovery, and community. The Sterling Heights Public Library's vision is an engaged community where all can discover, learn, and grow. Tonight, I'm going to focus on 5 areas that will be the most impactful over the next 12 months: strategic planning, technology, community space, programming, and access. We're currently in our 2nd year of working through our strategic plan. I've listed our 4 focus areas and our top 5 patron service priorities. The combination of focus areas and service priorities help the library team set goals for each year to lay out what we will concentrate on for the current year. We're conducting public surveys every January to find out how we are doing based on the goals we set. We have had much success during our 1st year of working our plan. Working with the Community Relations Department, a new library newsletter was created that is emailed monthly. A new video game collection was developed that provides residents with access to Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox games. We recently held a ribbon cutting for our larger makerspace to meet resident demand for a creative space where they can use a variety of equipment. We started a new program for homeschool families to meet and learn about library resources and network with each other. We also developed a new Library of Things collection. Items in the collection include our Wi-Fi hotspots and bikes that we have originally had, and we've added virtual reality headsets, a telescope, a portable projector, outdoor games, lots of other things, as well as study aids such as a skeleton and a heart model that can be used at the library. All these items are provided at no cost to residents thanks to the generous funding of the Friends of the Library. For 2025, our goals are to improve our collection development using software that I'll speak about next. We'll also be increasing our outreach to schools and senior facilities. We've already started contacting the senior facilities that have our book collections on site to arrange programs where we can talk to the residents about our digital library resources and sign them up for library cards. We have also recently hosted visits from the Warren Consolidated Schools kindergartners for a tour, a story, and a craft. We will be looking at improving the signage in the building so that we can cross-promote our digital resources and programs in various areas of the building. We will then review signage that provides directional assistance so that patrons know where to access all of our great services. The second focus area tonight is technology. Library IQ is a collection development / library management software that provides real-time data insights for library staff to be able to combine our shared integrated library system data with data collected by our major book vendor, as well as our digital resources vendors, to give us a better picture of how our library is being used. The software will help us with our strategic planning goals to be able to track metrics and review performance for measurable improvement. A major use of the software is to assist our librarians in understanding our collection composition, circulation, and performance instantly. Librarians will be able to compare our physical and electronic collections to determine cost and circulation trends across multiple vendors and compare collections across other libraries and retail bookstores. We will be able to quickly see which collection subject areas to expand or contract and identify never circulated titles. This will assist us in allocating the collection budget so that we are providing the best collection for our residents. Another feature of the software is patron mapping. We will be able to understand more clearly who uses our library and who doesn't, with geographic mapping activity indexes that have privacy controls. We will be able to identify areas of the city that may not be engaging with the library and our services, and market to those areas to ask them what services they might be interested in and promote those services heavily in specific areas of the city. We will also be able to combine our current foot traffic data into the Library IQ software to identify popular hours for visits and project future visitor traffic. This will help us to optimize our staffing resources and our marketing efforts. The third focus area is community space. The library provides many safe and welcoming spaces for our residents to enjoy. Outside of the library, we currently have the O'Reilly Children's Art Garden, our oversized checkerboard area, and next week we'll be holding a ribbon cutting for our new outdoor musical instruments. The next area we'd like to make more usable is the space between the police station and the library. There is space to install a new bike rack, some new picnic tables, some hopscotch and other decals on the cement to make this space for residents to gather in the shade while they're in the Richard J. Noddy City Center area. Inside the library building, we also have some great spaces that we want to keep improving. As I said earlier, one of our top 5 service priorities is the youth services space. We have interactive toys, puzzles, a fish tank, and a play table. We're proposing to add an additional play table due to its popularity. The play table is an interactive games table that promotes the positive use of technology for our younger patrons to learn through educational games. Exposure to new technologies is a part of every child's learning experience. The library is able to provide a variety of learning tools to supplement what children may not have access to in their own homes. We are also proposing to add 2 sets of pod furniture in the adult services area. These are our most popular seats in the library and are occupied as soon as we open our doors on most days. Like when I took this picture, I just asked her, hey, can we come and take a picture? You know, there's always people in these chairs. They provide more space for patrons to spread out their books and laptops and a little bit of privacy with the higher backs on the seating areas. The fourth area I want to highlight is programming. The Sterling Heights Public Library is known for its excellent variety of programs that are provided for residents of all ages. From story times, book groups, scavenger hunts, and adult crafts, there's something for everyone. We regularly partner with other city departments to provide experiences that our residents enjoy, including the first Page Turners Social held with the Community Alliance Commission and the Community Relations Department, which went over very well. In order to meet this growing demand for programs, we're proposing the addition of a part-time programming specialist position. This will be a bachelor's degree position, preferably someone with an education background. As you know, our staff is the most important resource that the library has, and we have an amazing staff at the library, and nothing is possible without them. The library's strategic plan indicates that we need to increase our staffing in this area specifically in order to provide an improved experience for our residents. And the addition of this position will help us do that. The last area I'd like to highlight is access. At the heart of every library's mission is to provide access to the information that our residents want, access to services, and empower our residents through lifelong learning opportunities. Having a library card provides so much more than just access to books, although books are really good. We currently have 69,206 library card holders, and those card holders have access to over 185,000 physical items, and over 180,000 digital materials. We have our new Library of Things collection that I mentioned earlier, and a variety of programs for all ages. With a library card, patrons can also reserve our meeting rooms and use one of our 5 study rooms. We have a scan station that provides patrons with the ability to fax, scan, and digitize documents and photos. Our expanded makerspace provides access to 3D printers, vinyl cutters, a heat press, a sewing machine, and more. All of this can be accessed by our residents with their library card. And if you don't have a library card, you can come into the library with your government ID with their Sterling Heights address on it and apply. It only takes a few minutes, and parents can get library cards for their children with the parent's identification. So we want to make it easier for our patrons to access our services by providing them with a visual of our building before they get here. And I'm going to show you an example of this 3D mapping that Plymouth District Library did with the same company. So the 3D map of the library, you can actually watch a video, and you can also control it manually to go where you want to go. But the 3D map that we're proposing to add will be interactive so that patrons can move through it as they see fit. It will be accessible through our website and on our Google business page to improve our online presence. It is also an educational resource. There are many people that are anxious when going to a new place. This 3D mapping will provide them with the ability to see the entire library building and know what to expect when they arrive. As an example, children will be able to see what the storytime room looks like ahead of time so that they feel more comfortable not being with their parent. This service will also assist with our meeting room usage. Residents that want to book a meeting room can see what the space actually looks like ahead of time without having to come to the library to know if it will meet their needs. It's also a way to market the library to show everyone all the great things that our library has to offer. Technical difficulties. Can't use a mouse. There. There. This one. But I can't click on. There we go. It is an exciting time at the library. From our littlest residents hearing stories to our preschoolers' positive social interactions and our adult residents' pursuits of lifelong learning, the Sterling Heights Public Library is working with our partners to provide exciting and educational opportunities that we can all enjoy together to improve ourselves and our community. Sterling Heights Public Library, an engaged community where all can discover, learn, and grow. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to speak with you tonight.
And Mayor, that concludes our presentations. I think you'll agree that we really are innovating living with our proposed fiscal year 25 budget. We're ready to hear any comments, thoughts, feedback from the mayor and city council. Also, please be reminded, if you have any suggested amendments, we'd like to hear them tonight. We really need to hear them tonight. If there are motions to amend the budget, even for topics at the next meeting, that'd be good. And without opposition, then we'll prepare the formal motions for consideration for council action on the 23rd. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Vanderpool. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Sarowski, for getting this meeting started while I was at my son's school concert. Every year we do this, and every year I always ask, what do we do now? Council, do we want to make comments on the budget workshop, or do we want to jump right to item 2, introduce the ordinance, hear feedback from the public, and then make our comments under the ordinance introduction? Okay, we'll do the ordinance introduction. So I'll call the next item. The next item is to introduce the fiscal year 2024-2025 appropriations ordinance. And is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on this item? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Zarko.
resolve to introduce the fiscal year 2024-25 appropriations ordinance.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Mrs. Zarko, do you want to start?
Do you want us to have discussion first, or obviously, is there's, yeah, I'm, never mind. Never mind.
I gave
Never
them
mind.
Troy the
Yeah,
chance.
no,
and-
nobody, I mean, the big crowd doesn't want to speak tonight.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to thank everybody that presented tonight, because certainly we appreciate all the efforts of informing not just us, but the residents as to what's coming up and what has been and why we need the new items that we might have in this particular budget. I do have some questions. I'm going to throw this out there so whoever can answer them. So through the chair to either Mr. Vanderpool, Ms. Varney, the positions that have already been budgeted, that were described today, that were budgeted, but now the names are different, are those positions that will be filled between now and July 1, or are we putting them into the next budget? And that would be, the one I think about is the new assistant city manager and DEI exchange. That's the first one that comes to my mind. So because we've already approved it, will we be hiring that person before July 1?
Mrs. Varney.
I mean, budgetarily, there's no reason not to go forward with that process, and I believe they are going forward with the process. Whether the actual hiring will take place prior to July 1 is hard to say based on recruitment and interviewing. But that was, again, the money for the DEI officer is already budgeted and there for the whole year. So the plan is to, go forward with the new assistant city manager position who also will cover DEI. And there's no reason to wait till July 1st for that process to go forward.
Okay, thank you. Then some of the other things are just comments as far as Wi-Fi in Dodge Park. I think it's overdue. We could have done that many years ago. And I think it'll make a difference to the residents that don't have Wi-Fi, and they can sit in the parking lot and do some of their business. I hope I have this right. Is it Mike from Space Link? Okay, through the chair to, Mike, and I didn't remember your last name, so I apologize for not addressing you as Mr. I guess some of the questions I have for you is, first of all, what's the population of Ontario, so through the chair, of Ontario, California?
182,000.
182,000, and they went from one drone to now about 60?
60 drone pilots, sworn officers or sworn pilots, and then about 30 drones.
Okay, those drones, though, are not just city-owned. Those are owned by businesses as well? No,
Those
they're
are
all
city-owned.
city-owned
Those are
drones?
city-owned
Okay. And then exactly, do I understand it that you're going to manage our airspace like air traffic controllers?
We do that today, correct?
Okay.
We do the air traffic control, but a lot of communities don't even know where to start, how to integrate drones into their own workflows and make sure the drones are registered. They have Part 107 pilots and all of the compliance that's required even for a community to manage their own drones, but also understanding where residents should and shouldn't be flying and things like that. Just putting the systems in place to support that at a local level versus the full air traffic control, but it does support.
Okay, it is support. So you'll not only be monitoring our drones then, but you'll also be able to monitor drones that are run by other companies?
Yeah, it depends on how far the community or Sterling Heights takes the system. Several of the communities are installing what are called remote ID sensors. As of March 16th, here in the United States, no drones can be flown without broadcasting its location and model information. Then public safety has access to that information for understanding who's flying where and what. So we support from the authorization capability, and then it's optional that a community can actually put in detection to see, where our drone's flying within this community.
Okay, so then, I guess if there are drones operating already within our community, who's monitoring those? And you might not have the answer, but I just wonder who's monitoring those drones?
No one at this point. You're not in controlled airspace. So today, people are operating however as long as they're following the rules and the regulations of the Before You Fly application that we have today. They're checking for temporary flight restrictions within Sterling Heights before they're operating. So it is unmonitored right now.
So it would be to our benefit to provide some kind of monitoring service.
Yes, there's several different capabilities that then also you can provide as a shared infrastructure to those operators to then potentially do more advanced capabilities. So it's a monitor, but the more capabilities the community has, the more you can allow that for, like you had mentioned, Ford, Stellantis, UPSs to start to look at using those systems, safety systems to provide other services here in Sterling Heights. So just another, we call it a digital infrastructure for drones that a lot of communities don't have yet.
I think that answers all of my questions.
Excellent.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Through the chair to Chief Wojciechowski. For the command center, about how many times a year, or how often do we use the command center?
Obviously, every year at Sterling Fest, but then we also use it, we would love to use it on a monthly basis during our SRT training that we have. We train once a month with our SRT operators and our negotiators, so it'd be great to utilize that vehicle on that monthly training, but we can't because the current EM50 just doesn't work. Everything's broken it. So we would use it every single month for that. And then actual call-outs, if we, again, going back the last 2 or 3 years, there was no option to take out the M50 because everyone said, oh, the slide outs are broke, the heating doesn't work, so we haven't used it. So I would say between Sterling Fest, monthly training and actual police call outs, I mean, you could see 15 to 20 times a year deployments.
Okay, thank you. And I'm glad that you clarified with the flock cameras that the police have to, well, first of all, it sounds like the device in the car is activated or it's got a warning that there is a license plate that's out there being tagged, whether it be because it's stolen or for whatever reason. So I'm glad that you clarified that it's not the police officer that automatically initiates the use of the flock.
Yeah.
Although if with a good reason, they can access that for other purposes.
Yep, law enforcement purpose, they have to type right in the little box exactly why you're looking at flock and why you're searching for a plate or a partial vehicle description.
Okay, and then I guess when we said that, you made a comment that sometimes, depending on who responds to the call, how the outcome is on the CIT training. Is there a reason why all of our officers couldn't be trained somehow in that training, so no matter who shows up, they are knowledgeable in how the situation can best be handled?
That is a great question, Councilwoman Zerko. You read my mind. Because I had the same exact question. I said, why don't we just train everybody? And everything I've read said, do not train everybody. Because there's certain people you don't want trained to deal with people in mental crisis. There's people that are just geared, whether it's genetically the way they were raised, to deal with people in mental distress, and I've seen that. I have 161 sworn, and some officers are geared for tactical, legal purposes, and great detectives, investigators, undercover narcotics guys that can buy and sell, drugs from anybody in the world, but maybe not the person you send into a house because someone is a paranoid schizophrenic that's off their meds. Totally different skill set. So the idea, everything I've been reading lately, this is all still pretty relatively new, is you pick and identify those officers that'll be successful in those roles, and you train those officers to respond to those runs.
I guess my question would be, are there officers that are trained in those runs on different shifts throughout the day so that at any given time, there's somebody that could handle that run?
It's exactly the idea. You would train them enough to have them on all the shifts so that you always have someone working that has that skill set. Just like we have an evidence technician assigned to every shift, a K-9 officer on every shift, you have that skill set deployed on the shift, ready to go.
Okay. Nothing further. So that's easy. Okay, now, through the chair to Chief Edmund, please. My question is for the positions the new positions, is there somebody that's already in the department that's doing those jobs, those responsibilities, has those responsibilities, or is this something that you're just expanding the services within the department?
We're expanding the services within the department. Those are positions and functions that we're not currently doing.
Okay. And that's the only question I have for you. I mean, I know. Because I think what you've answered the question on this is we keep talking about how we don't have as many employees as we did in 2002 and 2003. But we've learned to manage with the people that are here. They're, but there's different skill sets now. So even when we're hiring and, people back to work within the city and increase the number, they might be doing something that we never did 10 or 15 years ago because of the way things have changed. So, I appreciate us looking forward into providing those services for the residents. As we continue to change, society continues to change, that we meet those changes. Thank you. Oh, my library. First of all, I don't have any questions, just a lot of comments, because I'm there, but you can come up and, we can talk. On any given day, you can go into the library and there's something going on. I mean, I decided, because I have the time that I volunteer for a couple of hours every week. And when I walk in, I never know if I'm going to see little kids. I don't ever know if I'm going to see high school kids that stop there because they might be doing homework because they're waiting for a parent to pick them up from work. There's adults that, it's English as a second language might be taking place in another corner of the library. Libraries are not just for books anymore. And what's interesting is you brought up the Page Turner Social. And even though I brought it up at a council meeting, what I forgot to say is that it's like a book club, but not everybody's reading the same book. So we have people that actually read physical books, e-books, that, they brought an electronic device with them. But what I forgot to say is there were people that were using audio books because they're dyslexic. And so they wanted to be a part of things, so that was one way for them to be a part of things, is to listen to these audio books. And we provide those services. I would like to make a pitch for the Friends of the Library, because they're an active group that raises funds to continue to support the services that the library provides that we don't have in the budget. So, and that's pretty easy at $10 a year, $20, for the family, and then you get discounts in the used but sterling bookstore. So, I mean, you get your money back because you get $1 off every month, so you're actually getting money back on the $10. So, but yes, I have to know more about this 3D, how the 3D layout of the library is going to be, because there might be people that you wouldn't want to know where everything is at in the library and how it's accessible. So those are things I would be concerned about, is security. So, and right now I always think of the library as being a very secure place, family-friendly. The personnel, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but they watch out for everybody that comes in. So that's something I think I need to know more about before I would jump into it. So again, I want to thank everybody that presented tonight, and I know good work by all, and thank you for moving us forward. Nothing further.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Zarko. Mr. Radke?
Sure. So many things. I want to thank everyone for their wonderful presentations. It's always so much fun this time of year trying to figure out how to make everything work within our budget, but I think we have some wonderful directors in the city who work hard every day to be smart with our dollars. I guess to start, I know I had talked with the chief about this previously, so through the chair to Chief Dojikowski. With the total build out of the command vehicle, what are we estimating the cost to be?
I don't know yet. We haven't really got a firm number. It's going to be over $1 million for that vehicle. And I forgot to mention during the presentation that will be 100% paid for with drug forfeiture funds, which I didn't mention, but we're at historic levels. Some of the biggest drug cases that we've had in years have had just recently with the retirement of Lieutenant Saluski. We thank him for his service. He's just about to leave the drop program. Unbelievable cases involving gigantic drug cartels from Mexico, moving vast amounts of drugs in and around Macomb County and Sterling Heights. And we've had some incredible seizures that will pay for this entire vehicle.
That's amazing work, Chief, and it's a boon to our budget for things like this, because I asked the city mayor, I said, how am I going to pay for this? That's $1 million that I really don't have in the budget. So the hard work of you and your officers are really paying off, I guess, for the residents of Sterling Heights. Next, just some general comments. I'm always so excited this time of year, just like Councilwoman Zarko, about how we fund things and how we pay for things, because a budget is a priority book. It's the things that we care about here in Sterling Heights. So I just have some thoughts and some questions. You know, I've recently been talking to some officers, Chief, and I know that talking to the city manager, we want to get more use out of our clinic in our basement, and I forget what the clinic is called, Mark. But we have a clinic in our basement that is essentially a provider's office for a doctor's office. I thought it'd be wonderful if we really put our heads together and thought about ways to get more of our staff, including the police department, into that provider's office. And one thing that I was thinking about is maybe a fitness or peer support coach. That, you know, we have a doctor, we have a nurse, but, you know, for those of us who experienced the pandemic, I've lost 15 pounds. I think that there's probably some officers, and not just officers, employees across the organization that could really benefit from a dietitian or some kind of fitness or peer support. And I think it would be a wonderful way to both get them into our clinic, give them a service that I don't think a lot of cities provide their employees, would be a net benefit for all employees. So I think that might be something to think about in your department, because it's easy to say that I should lose weight or I should change my lifestyle. And I mean, we've had officers who've had heart attacks in the past. We've had officers who have health problems, and the stress level of the job is just off the charts. And I think that this might be a way to help facilitate better outcomes while also getting them the care that they need. More than that, I'm very excited about repurposing the former jail space. I think it's long overdue. It doesn't really work as a storage room, but I think a training facility might be. I watch the videos, and oftentimes you're training in the garage. Your officers are training wherever we can find some space. So I think a dedicated training room might really benefit you and them, so they don't get injured, that they stay safe, and also benefit the department in general, because I know we require a lot of training of our officers. So I think that might be a very good use of that space. Also, as you talk about this critical response team, I think that's an excellent idea. I somehow got subscribed to an email newsletter that sends us ideas for different ways to deal with the homeless population, the mentally ill. And one thing they've talked about is these critical response teams and how essential they become to other departments. And I know that we're hiring, we have one social worker, right, Chief? And we're hiring another one right now?
That's correct, yes.
Correct. I would go further and ask my colleagues, you know, could we really talk to the state legislature? We need to create our own health department here in Sterling Heights. We are essentially taking on all of the qualities of a health department, and we aren't getting any commensurate funding with it. You know, we're paying out of pocket for our social workers. And the reason that I know that I voted to support the first social worker in Sterling Heights was we had a situation, I think, with a hoarder home where we couldn't get the resident who was obviously mentally ill in front of a social worker. I think it was a 3-month wait or a 4-month wait. It was insane that we had this person that is obviously not mentally well, and we need to give her the care that she needed, and we could not get her in front of a social worker. So we instituted that as a service to our residents. But other cities have health departments, and they get devolved funding for their health departments. So we really need to sit with our state legislature, in my opinion, state legislators, excuse me, and work with them to allow cities of over 100,000 people, for example, or communities over 100,000 people to get the healthcare dollars so that we can provide these services, not rely on Macomb County to provide them for us. That's all I have for you, Chief, just so you know. Further, through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool, we were talking about road funding earlier, and I'm very excited that Mound Road is 90% completed, just about 89%. And I know a lot of it has to do with the relocation of utilities on Mound Road. Is that correct, Mr. Vanderpool, the chair?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Radke, if you're referring to the pathway, is it?
What is still on the punch list for Mound Road? I guess it's the utilities need to be removed from the center.
Yeah, there's still a lot of cleanup in the median. All the utilities in the median still have to be removed. There's still lighting that has to be installed in the median, moved from the west side to the median. You'll see there's still all the utility lines still there on the west side. All those lines have to be transferred to the east side where there's new aluminum utility poles, then all those wood poles have to be removed. In addition, all the landscaping has yet to be completed. Some of it's in, north of Metro Parkway. It's not fully established yet, so there's still a lot of punch list items. And in addition, the welcome signs still have to go in. So we will have welcome to Sterling Heights signs, highly, very aesthetically pleasing. There'll be one at 14 Mile Road, just north of 14. So as you're driving northbound, you'll see welcome to Sterling Heights. Those will be uplit. And then there'll also be one just south of Dobry on Mound, welcoming you to Sterling Heights as well.
I know that the mayor's asked them to be little halos because he loves the halo and the design.
I mean, Mound's bigger than, Mound's every bit as big as Hall Road.
Absolutely.
It could be at least as big.
Absolutely. And further, I was hoping you might have an update from the county. If you remember, we were unceremoniously dumped on sidewalk funding for parts of Mound, including the 18.5-mile throughway on a way to get people up and down the roadway. And the county promised that they'd work with us on securing grants and funding to fill the sidewalk gap. And I was wondering if you'd heard from the county or if that's just another broken promise by them.
Thank you, Councilman Radke. We haven't developed a thorough plan yet with the county to get over 18.5-mile road. We've talked about some concept ideas, but the first order of business too will be getting our own sidewalk on 18.5-mile road, which we don't have installed yet. So that is certainly a later phase. There has been no discussion with the county where they've said, no, we're not going to do that. You're right, they did offer to help us with some ideas. We just haven't quite gotten to that point yet. I think once we get the road fully wrapped up, the 10-foot wide pathways on the west side and the new sidewalk on the east side, then we can talk about some of these hurdles, including 18.5-mile road.
Wonderful. And I know, we didn't talk about it today, but you said to think about the things we want to talk about even for next week. We've talked a lot about the Sterling Green Initiative and all the ideas that we have there, and I'm sure we might have some presentations next week on those very subjects. But one thing I've been thinking a lot about, as something that really goes along with the Sterling Green Initiative, is the final creation, I've talked about this before, of a stormwater utility to better ascertain or to transfer to the people who are the biggest offenders, who flood the stormwater system with water, that they're paying a higher fee than the people who aren't. And I guess the idea behind the stormwater utility to parcel out these fees that we pay from the general fund would be to strongly encourage people who abuse the stormwater system with impermeable surface and large drains to scale back to pay less, or to initiate things like bioswales and other ways to deal with their stormwater that isn't just flooding it into the. So the utility, in my view, would not just be simply, we're charging you X for Y. It would be as a way to increase our sustainability goals and encourage our largest stormwater users, and we can kind of think about who they are in the city of Sterling Heights, to better manage their stormwater through other means instead of just putting it into the drain. So that's something I think we should really think hard about. And then, one of my old hobby horses, and I see Steve Dion, is he still here?
Yep, in the corner.
You're hiding in the corner. To the chair to Mr. Dion. I've been desperate for a new email address here in Sterling Heights. And this is year 7, so I'm curious when we might transition to our new domain name, our new email addresses in year 7, because I was told, I think 4 or 5 years ago it was going to be that year, but now we're in year 7, so if you could help me with that, I'd really appreciate it.
Thank you for the question, Councilman Radke. Yes, we are heavily involved in this project right now. Obviously, with a highly technical project like that, with switching our domain name, our UPN, there's a lot of different branches that we've had to address. A lot of it had to do with single sign-on for our different applications for our employees. My department is dedicated to not breaking anything as we advance our technology. So we just had a meeting about that earlier today, and we're pretty 99% confident we'll have that done by the end of this month. We've already obviously changed our website around to sterlingheights.gov, but we will be making the UPN change shortly. Some documentation will be going out to all city employees in the next week or so, outlining some of the changes that they will make. We're extensively testing that out now. We have it in a beta mode right now where we're testing it out. So we will have that done by the end of the month. Our domain name will switch to sterlingheights.gov. Obviously, you would still be able to receive email at sterling-heights.net and also sterlingheightsmi.gov. So all three domain names will be active. They're all registered on our online portal and our Microsoft tenant, so that will be coming here in the near future. And I know you've been a huge proponent of that, and we talk about that in our meetings, that we want to get this done. And
I'm very excited, and I think the residents will be excited, because I actually had a phone call today from a gentleman, I think it was yesterday, who had not had his garbage picked up, and he was trying to email us, and getting him to get the dash in Sterling-Heights. Like, I think that was the hiccup, and he called me twice on the phone trying to figure this out, like, why won't the email go through? I think this is gonna be a boon for our residents, so they can communicate with us and we can communicate with them, so I appreciate that.
long overdue, yes.
Yes. That's all I have for you, Mr. Dan. Through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool, I was looking through the capital improvements budget, and I see a budget request for $750,000 to repair the Nature Center Bridge. But the original request was much more. Is the $750,000 going to be enough to fix that bridge so that residents can use it? I know the Nature Center is a very popular amenity for people who live over there especially.
Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Radke, as you may recall, and the Budget and Finance Director can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we initially estimated replacing the bridge, and instead we're now repairing it. We found it to be more cost-effective to repair it, and thus a lower amount.
I appreciate that. Will the repair extend the life of the bridge, or, I guess I'm curious what the difference, through the chair to Mrs. Varney, because I see her raising her hand.
I was very involved in this. So the original request was to replace the bridge with, to be honest, a bridge similar in scope to the Dodge Park Bridge, which was over $2 million. So that's a lot of money. I initiated, worked with the city engineer and our engineering consultants, who estimated a repair of the bridge for the $750, and they actually recommended that and said it would extend the life 30 years.
Okay.
And we also talked to our fire department, because one of the concerns was getting an ambulance over that bridge, but the fire department was very comfortable, one, with the EMS gator that is in the budget, and two, there is a parking lot, pretty close to that bridge. They were comfortable that they did not need a bridge. They would not need to drive an ambulance over that bridge.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the engineering department, everyone getting together and trying to save the city money, because I looked at that too, another bridge. Bridges are so expensive in the city, and I was happy to see that cost. I just wanted to make sure that we were going to fully fund that. And I guess also on this topic, I had a mother in our city reach out, because she's very concerned that there isn't enough sidewalk on Utica Road, and there's no real way to cross from the south side of Utica Road to the north side in front of the Nature Center. And she had to take her children's hands and walk across the roadway there, and she was almost clipped by a car speeding. And so I was hoping the city could really examine this. I know we've done this in the past, but we have several major parks that lack sidewalk, are not walkable. I think of Baumgardner, there's no sidewalk in front of it, as an example of this. But also the Nature Center, if we could get maybe one of the lights that light up, because I would hate to see a family get harmed trying to cross Utica Road to access the amenities that we have there. If we could think about that, Mr. Vanderpool, I'd really appreciate it. And then, sorry, I have all these notes I took, I apologize. I know that we talked about this briefly, Mr. Vanderpool, but I would love for the Lakeside CIA, which we're going to create, the North Van Dyke CIA, which we've already created, and the LDFA, they all have their own budgets and they all operate semi-autonomously. But for other committees like our Planning Commission and our ZBA, or even our Ethnic Advisory Committee, we have them come before us every so often to talk, or even have a meeting between us so that we can make sure that we are all on the same page as to the council's priorities. With Lakeside coming up, and with the North Van Dyke project hopefully starting to gain some momentum, I'd want to make sure that we are on the same page with our CIA and our LDFA, especially because, not that I love to agree with Mr. Smith, but, velocity is really an interesting case in that it's a tremendous facility, but it's located in an odd spot. And it's costly to maintain. I think the last several budgets, we had to fix the parking lot, the HVAC, and maybe there's a better use for Velocity for the city. Maybe there's a better use for the property. Maybe our incubator, our tech incubator would better be located on North Van Dyke, for example, or in the new Lakeside area. I don't know. I'm not saying that I have a plan for this yet. But whenever I drive to Velocity, which, by the way, is doing tremendous, our director, April Boyle there, has done tremendous work on the facility. There's a lot more energy there. I just think if I was a young tech executive who wanted to come someplace, being in a parking lot next to a bumper factory, next to a railroad, it might not be where I'd want to spend my hours. So I'm wondering if there might be a better use of that facility as city offices or something else. But I'd really like us to really put our heads together with our LDFA, with our CIAs, and really think about the next, we talk about strategic plans all the time. I'd like to think about the next 5 or 10 years and how we think about we're getting these projects up off the ground and accomplished, but also because they're buying property and they're doing things now where in the past they haven't really traditionally done those things. I want to make sure that the council and these boards are aligned. So without an objection, I'd like them to come give us a report sometime soon where we can talk with them, I hope, Mr. Vanderpool, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Vanderpool, any response?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Radke, we've talked about that. We'd be happy to have the boards come. We did have the LDFA a couple of years ago. You may recall when we had all the boards and commissions. But you're right, there's a lot of activity going on in the North Van Dyke area, not to mention Lakeside. And we are also taking a hard look at the Velocity Center and thinking about what does the next iteration of that look like, especially as the smart zone will be expiring in the next few years. So you're going to see a comprehensive report on options to consider with respect to Velocity. So yes, your ideas, and without opposition, we'd be happy to coordinate a follow-up.
Any opposition to that or any objection? Seeing none.
Excellent, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess the one final question, issue, thing that I'm going to ask for is, we've talked a lot about our economic development strategy for the city, and we have a tremendous economic development advisor in Luke Bonner, who is working every day to try to bring the Lakeside project home, is working on the North Van Dyke, is working on our huge industrial and commercial districts. But I've long thought, and we've talked about it before, Mr. Vanderpool, that we don't have enough heft, enough support in economic development. And it's not just for the major projects. Something I'm thinking about is other cities have staff that are devoted to mom and pop businesses, local business, to help them establish themselves, maybe grow themselves, get through the permitting process. One of my frustrations, and it's not a real frustration, we have an excess of large business in the city, and I appreciate that. But it can often be hard for someone to navigate the Byzantine city bureaucracy to get things off the board. And I would like a budget amendment to add an economic development officer, a junior economic development officer to the city to be here every day at City Hall as the point person for people who want to walk in off the street, who want to talk about how do I start my business? How do I expand my business? How do I fill out things? I mean, one problem we had a couple of years ago, which I hope we've remedied, was some of our larger businesses didn't turn in their tax forms. And that blew a huge problem in their taxes, but also sent vibrations throughout the city. Maybe this person could be tasked with making sure things like that happen. We need more power at City Hall, and I don't want to tremendously add to the budget, but I think it's very important. I'd ask for, without objection, a budget amendment to be presented to add an economic development officer. I estimate this probably wouldn't cost more than $100,000, but I think it's essential now. We've talked about it in the past, but it's coming. And I think that, if we want to really be a city for everyone, it can't just be huge developments and nobody. It has to be a city for those developments, but also for the smaller ones too. I think it also would help with some of our housing plans, because there's tremendous opportunity and grants now through the governor's office for housing grants for small or mid-sized projects. And I want to make sure that we have the ability to go out there and find them and help our developers, everyone else, get the money they need to build and to start businesses in Sterling Heights. So that's what I would ask for without objection, Mr. Mayor.
Can you flesh that out? I mean, $100,000, and this would be a city position?
Yes.
Who would this person report to? Because it sounds like something that would be under Luke Bonner's
I assume
umbrella.
that's
He
what,
doesn't necessarily work for the city. He's a
So-
contractor.
I understand that, but his contract was signed before I ever was elected, and it rolls over. It's not, doesn't come back to the council table for review. So in the 7 years that I've been here, we've never once discussed Luke Bonner's contract. And I like Luke, but we need someone in the city every day. I think Luke is tremendous. I would have him keep on doing what he's doing because he has to work and shepherd all these big projects in. But I think that this person would, I'm leaving it to Mr. Vanderpool to put it in the company structure because that's not my job. It's Mr. Vanderpool's job. But I would ask that we have someone here at City Hall, a junior economic development person or somebody else to help our local businesses and make sure that they're getting the support they need too.
So, Mr. Koszybski, what do we typically do in terms of amendments that are offered? Do we take a vote? I just don't remember how we normally do this. Do we take a vote on whether we want that amendment proposed? Or can anybody just propose an amendment and then you guys, administration puts it together and then we vote on it?
So the simple answer is if it's proposed without objection, then what would happen is we would go back and we would bring forward a motion for you to deliberate on at the next council meeting, a special meeting. If there's an objection and somebody doesn't want to do that, then we'd have to take a vote on whether or not the direction to city administration to prepare that motion would be allowed.
Understood. Okay. Mrs. Zarko.
Well, with objection. I see the need. There are other organizations out there that do help our local businesses. I think it's a good idea to explore, but not for this particular budget.
Okay.
Mayor Taylor?
Mrs. Sarowski.
Through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool, who would do this now? Who is helping out if somebody comes into the city and has questions? Who is doing this now?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Sarowski, we cover the bases now the best we can. If you'll allow me, just offer a couple of comments on the topic. I share Councilman Radke's interest on this topic. We certainly do need more horsepower in economic development. And we will be presenting a plan in the near future to do just that. Okay. And it's all centered around, what are some of the options as we move forward with the Velocity Center as the smart zone starts to expire in the next couple of years. So now that doesn't mean we have to wait a couple of years. In fact, our plan is to get you a report certainly by year end. It's a little more complicated than you may think. But we believe we can free up some resources and put forth a meaningful recommendation that could add 2 or 3 more economic development full-time positions in-house. Okay. Now, I can't elaborate because we're still going through the analysis, but some of the areas where I think we really do need more assistance, as Councilman Radke mentioned, small businesses, that certainly should be a focus, and that could take a full-time position in and of itself. I think we're doing very well on the large projects, Lakeside, North Van Dyke, the big companies that need help, we're probably hitting it out of the park there. I think we also, I think you would all agree, we need some assistance with the defense sector as well in the city. We have massive defense assets, and unfortunately, as hard as they're trying, and the state and the county, we can't assume that they're going to do it for us at the local level. So those are 2 areas where we desperately do need some economic development help. And then also just on some other general economic, this is a very big city, a lot of economic development activity going on every single day. We have a very robust local economy. So the current structure of a team approach with consultants and planning and so on is working. But we could do it even bigger, even better, far more effectively, with even greater success with additional in-house personnel. So for whatever that is worth to you, you can expect a plan in the near future talking about restructuring economic development.
Okay, I guess why don't I ask it this way? Is there anyone who,
This has the floor, I think.
Well,
Never gave it up.
I didn't give it up, but, okay, but that does answer my question, and my question, I don't have objection, but what I would suggest then, at this point, to Barb's point, is if there is already a plan going forward, can we just table it until we have a more concise plan from city management going forward for those positions?
is there anyone who would be in favor of having administration prepare the amendment proposed by Mr. Radke? Okay, seeing none, I think we probably don't need to take a vote. Do you want to vote?
No,
Okay.
Yeah, let's wait till we get a better.
You still have the floor.
plan.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Radke.
I think that's a shame. I think we've waited too long. I've been talking about this issue now for 4 years, 5 years. So I guess 2 more years, maybe we'll get there, much like our email addresses, much like a lot of the things we do around here seems to take a very, very, very long time. And it's not me who's suffering. It's the small businesses in Sterling Heights that are the ones who are having the troubles. Because, I never took this approach, but the city administration has always been very prideful about how many people we cut and how we do more with less. But now we seem to do less with less every year. And I just, I'll just say this, it's incredibly frustrating because asking our small businesses, asking our other organizations to wait, we'll get to you eventually. We're a big city. Sometimes we act like a real small town, and it's real confusing to me. So I will wait on this plan, and I hope it's a good one. But we need these people now. We've known we need these people now. It seems like every unmet need in the city that anyone ever contemplates often gets met. But these large needs, we just never address them. So with that, I think that's all I have for now, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Radke. Mrs. Koski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to add to that, through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool, could you give us in our brief coming up for our next meeting, what your plans are or what your thoughts are in moving forward on Mr. Radke's motion?
There is no motion.
I know. There is no motion, but what Mr. Radke wanted. In other words, okay, let me rephrase that. What do you think we should do with the incubator? What do you think we should do with our consultant that we are using? And do you think we should have our own economic development department again? What are your thoughts on that? Just tell us so that we are prepared when you do come to some decision or if we have some suggestions to make.
Mr. Vanderpool.
Can you do that for us for the next meeting?
Oh, Mayor, thank
I
you.
pledge.
Councilwoman Koski, thank you. You said your next brief, which would be Thursday.
Yeah.
So if you say your next meeting, gives me a little more breathing room. But yes, I'd be happy to. And let me just, one quick additional comment. It's not as though we're not helping small businesses. That's what the Velocity Center does every single day. They are working hand in hand with the chamber, Connect Macomb. They're working with small businesses, consultants out of the Velocity Center, with the state, with the county, with financial institutions, marketing folks, developing the business plans they need to not only start up, but then continue. So accelerating existing businesses as well. So while I say that we can always do more with economic development, I do not want to leave the impression that we're not doing a good job or doing enough. I mean, it's it's really a model. It's more of a decentralized model that has paid huge dividends for this city. The economic climate in the city speaks for itself. The issue is, is there a more effective long-term model that is a little more centralized and brings some of the services in-house? And that's the report you're going to be getting with funding options.
That's what I'm looking for.
Mrs. Koski?
Okay, can I give my comments now?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Dion, just a quick question for you. I like the program regarding the drone, the airspace link. And in the budget, you have level 1 at a cost of $10,000. What exactly will that include?
Thank you for the question, Ms. Koski. Michael might be able to answer that better than me. I'm going to let him explain exactly what that includes.
Tell us your last name too, so we can stop
Yes.
calling you Michael.
Mr. Helander,
Delander.
appreciate it.
Thank
It
you.
is,
Write that down.
it's a detailed deep dive. It's an assessment, which ultimately ends up being a report and a roadmap based on the information from each of the different directors, departments, of how they would see the integration of drones within their departments, and then based on assessing the community and the types of businesses, the demographics, and the airspace, and the ground hazards, of a roadmap of how, from those meetings, what you'd like to see. And so we don't know where the city's at today, and that's what we need to understand. Do you have drones? Yes or no? Do you know where you can and can't fly, and how do you see that working into the vision and the mission of the community? And we create that recommendation, and then you take it from there and how you want to proceed.
My input, this is what I would like to see. We have two boards, Planning Commission and the Zoning Commission. Their job is to look at properties and make a decision either to approve or to deny, something that the property owner wants to do. It would really be fantastic to have a drone that could fly around that property so that they don't walk up to the door and say, hey, can I look at your property? But have a drone that could take a picture of that so that at the meeting, they could actually look at the property and help them make their decisions. And this is something that I would like to have included in that. What?
Assessment. And we
Assessment?
create recommendations on how that would work, what types of policies you'd want to put in place so that you could do that. So those would be some of the steps that we'd make towards making things like that.
And what it would cost for all council to get licensed to fly their drones around.
You know, we do $1,000 bonus at my company, anyone who gets their pilot license, so, drone pilot license, so it's something it'd be great to see.
Sounds like a great program, and it sounds like something that Sterling Heights probably will want to pursue. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Police Chief, you're doing a fantastic job. Everything that you presented today was really great, and I see that you're moving our department forward as usual. Fire Chief, I have one question for you. When you were talking about, what was it, Medicaid, Medicare?
Thank you for the question. Medicaid.
And you were talking about the actual cost of the service and what the payment was, $300 or something, and the ability to get 63 cents back on the dollar. What is that all about? Is that something that we're pursuing? Is that something that we might be able to do? Can you elaborate?
Absolutely. So right now, what it takes to get this done in the state of Michigan, and this would be available to all public providers throughout the state, is for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to put forward a 3-page document to CMS to put this program in place. That's really all it takes. So we have put full court press on them. We've used local senators and representatives to have conversations with them. I've talked to a lot of lobbyists, the MML, and also the fire chief's lobbyists to get this done.
And you can add that you have full council support to that, make it happen.
Yes, you guys actually passed a resolution, and we are having other communities pass that same resolution to put it in front of all their elected officials. So yeah, we are hard charging with that program to bring additional dollars to the state of Michigan for all public EMS providers.
You're doing a great job, fantastic job, and especially when you bring us back money.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I have for you. That's it. Everyone did a great presentation tonight, and I'm very pleased. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Koski. Mr. Yanas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. By the way, Mr. Mayor, you weren't here for Mr. Dion's presentation. And
I was here for some of it, the end.
The end?
Yeah.
You should know we're going from MySQL 2014 to MySQL 2022. It was riveting. It was a riveting presentation.
I can't wait to watch it on.
You can't, well, you're going to watch
YouTube.
it, you're going to want to make it on a loop and watch it over and over and over again.
I've got it on DVR, and I'm telling you, I will watch it as soon as I get home, because it is hard to go to sleep after these council meetings.
Well,
That might help.
That will help. That will definitely help. I just kid. Through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool, off the top of my head, I can think of 3 studies that are either going on right now or are about to take place. I have the carbon footprint study, the community mental health study, and the community risk reduction study. Are those? I know the carbon footprint study is going on at this time, correct?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Yanes, that is correct. All 3 of those studies are going on as we speak.
And do you have an end date to any or all of those? Do we know when we should get the final document?
I don't have it off the top of my fingers here, but I can give you an update on Thursday. But we are waiting for some additional feedback from the utilities on the carbon footprint study. So we're well along on that one, as you may know. The community risk reduction, we've met with the consultant. The fire department spent days with the consultant. So we expect the report, I think, Chief, in 30 days or so, July. Okay, so that's well on its way too. In the community mental wellness study, the RFP is out. We expect to be reviewing the RFP. That will have to come to City Council for award. Once we get the award, typically a comprehensive strategic plan of that sort could take 6 months. But I expect that'll be before you folks in the next 60 days.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vanderpool. Yeah, I have scratched a lot of notes here. Let me start the easy one, the librarian, Ms. Turgeon. You want to answer from you got to answer into the microphone. I do. I wasn't just recognizing you, although it's an honor to recognize you.
Good thing you got your glasses.
Well, it's a good thing I do have my glasses. The library is incredibly impressive. I have to say that. And I can tell you on a personal level, my wife and I both use the online stuff quite a bit, especially when we go on vacation, download some audiobooks and so forth, and I can imagine a lot of people do that. One of the things that I didn't notice in your presentation I was curious about are programs for people with disabilities and special needs. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, what you're doing and possibly expanding.
Yeah, we're always looking to expand whenever residents have suggestions. We had a librarian that had since left that was running an adaptive story time for kids, but we've kind of reimagined our current story time so that, and especially our preschool toddler time, to work with kids of all abilities actually in our regular story times. We have sensory bins that a lot of kids that are tactile sensitive, like to use. So we're incorporating a lot of what we used to do with our adaptive story times into our current toddler times and story time programs. But we're always looking to do some new things, and I know staff at the Recreation Department are very well trained in working with people of different abilities, so that's a great suggestion for us to, work on doing something like that with them.
Yeah, I was curious if you coordinated with Parks and Recs at all with their
No,
adaptive program.
you made me think of that.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
we're gonna talk about that.
No, that would be great.
But that's all I have for you, so thank you very much. I appreciate your response. Chief, Police Chief, just one question. Well, I don't know, why don't you all sit up front? I don't understand this, Yeah, there you go, Chief, because you're next anyway, so you want to sit right there. So I think it's, first of all, I'm glad we're getting another animal control individual. I don't want to call him an officer, but an individual. I appreciate the work that they do there. When I worked for the fire department, I went on a house that was full of cats. And I had to go with the animal control officer, and it's difficult work on a number of levels. So I appreciate that we're taking care of that. Do we have if you didn't say so already, do we have an estimated cost refurbishing the floor where the jail is?
I do not. So what we're asking for is some money to do the study.
Money to do the study.
Yeah, so they're going to say, yeah, this could cost, $2 million or something like that, or $3 million, and this is what you need to do. And they're going to ask us what we want to purpose those rooms as and what special equipment and gear we want in there. And they'll work up a total cost, and then the city manager will grant that cost no matter what it costs, and we'll be on our way.
Yeah, just magic wand?
Yes.
Yeah, just absolutely. Great work on directed patrol. Fantastic job, especially in the neighborhoods. Now, if you could put directed patrol on Metro Parkway about 5 to 6 o'clock in the morning, right around 16 and Shaner would be perfect. Thank you. Yes, you can hear them too, right? And so is it the CIT team? Did I get
Yes.
that right?
Yep.
Out of Overland Park?
Yes.
How many people first of all, how big is Overland Park compared to Sterling Heights?
I believe there were 160,000 people live there or something like that. It's
Slightly bigger.
Yeah, pretty affluent community, a high tax base. I want to say that unit is 19 or 20 officers, just the crisis response unit. 20 dedicated guys that.
Plus the social workers, or are they sworn officers?
It is the, plus the social worker. So I think he said it was like 12 officers and 6 clinicians that kind of, they go in and out because they only have usually one officer and a clinician on at a time, but you got to cover 24 hours, 7 days a week. It was astronomical when he told me how many people, and first thing I thought about was the dollar amount behind that. It was a lot.
Yeah. Well, a smart guy like you can probably figure out how to do it on the cheap and do it effectively. So we'll let you get to work on that, like right away. That's not all I got for you, Chief. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Oh, one other thing, Chief. When you get the new command vehicle,
Yes.
$1 million, I know you're buying it with drug money, which is your money. It has nothing to do with the rest of us.
Yes.
Are you going to let the fire department actually get into the vehicle, or you're going to make them stand outside like you used to with this EM50?
The outside has an awning and a television accessible
Okay,
for their
all right.
use, so.
We'll bring folding chairs. Thank you, Chief. You are now done. Chief? Oh, I didn't even have to ask. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Chief. I greatly appreciate it. So let me just go over the engines. I'm glad, listen, we got 2012, 16, 20, 22, 24, all, relatively newer. I mean, I know we're going to replace the 12, but we never really talked about the reserve fleet. And I know we grade the reserve fleet A through F?
That is correct.
A through F. So how many reserve vehicles do we have, and what are the grades of our reserve fleet, if you know?
There are 3 reserve engines and 1 reserve ladder truck.
Okay.
They have been graded this past thing as very poor. We're in the process of getting them fixed and repaired, and in the process of making sure that we have fully functional reserves going forward.
Okay. Because quite often, those reserves are filling in for frontline engines who are getting some work done, right?
That is correct. And we are really looking at solving that problem and working diligently with that, and we'll have that solved.
Because it seems we sort of get caught, especially now, I mean, the price of engines have gone way up and delivery time has gone way up. And it seems like we've gotten caught in the past where our engines got old and we had no particular, even though we may have had a plan to replace them, we didn't activate the plan. It seems like when we have a lead time of 36 months or longer, we should be having we should have a plan that whether we keep an engine for 15 years or 20 years or 20, however long we want to keep it, but we should have a plan where we start dropping engines and we know far enough in advance that this engine's going to age out and we need to replace it, right? And when it ages out, generally it becomes a reserve. Is that correct? And then the reserve, the oldest reserve, goes off somewhere else. But as of right now, we don't have a plan like that, or we're working on a plan.
We have that plan pretty tied up. One of the things that was not getting done on a regular basis was mileage and forecasting.
Okay.
So we instituted a program called PS Tracks to where we can kind of look at downtime for apparatus, mileage for apparatus, and then forecast the future of when these vehicles need to be replaced. And that's where we're working with city administration right now to get all the apparatus on a replacement schedule. We've done that for the ambulances. Now we're working on the heavy fire apparatus to get that done.
Okay, very good. Did it help bringing on a second chief?
Absolutely. That second position to where we're able to separate operations and administration into two spots has helped drastically. We're only 3 months into it right now, but it's helping tremendously.
Thank you, Chief. Are you familiar with the fire, the GM fire? I think they call the plant Net Zero. Are you familiar with that?
You're talking about the lithium battery one in Detroit?
Yeah, Detroit, yeah.
Yes.
Are you familiar? Obviously, Stellantis and Ford are going to, at some point, probably start building electric vehicles here in Sterling Heights. Are we prepared to fight a fire like that?
We have fire blankets right now, and we're actually exploring new technology to detect these fires a lot simpler or quicker, I would say. And we've had conversations actually with Stellantis because they're moving towards doing electric vehicles there, so we're on top of that.
We're on top of it, okay. That's recorded, by the way. We're on top of it. Because I know what happened in Detroit, and nobody was on top of it. It was, because once these, I won't bore everybody with it, but it's a difficult fire to fight. Let me just say that, correct?
It is, and if I could just add
go ahead.
to that.
Please.
Is the Assistant Chief, Sean Allen, has actually met with them and met with the detector company that we're looking to have them kind of install this. So what this does is that it catches the fire at a very, very early stage. So it's a lot quicker, sort of like what sprinklers did for us in buildings. This system's going to do for us with these EV batteries in these places that are building them.
And you just can't spray water on the batteries once they start going.
It takes a tremendous amount of water to put it.
Tremendous amount of, copious, I think is the word.
Yes,
Copious
copious
amounts
is
of
the
water.
correct word for that.
Yes, okay. Okay, very good. So I gotta tell you, so I am supportive of the Community Risk Reduction Officer, which sounds like an inspector plus.
Correct.
And the community EMS person, I think that also has potential too. I'm a little concerned. So who has a community EMS? Anybody around us have that individual on staff? And do you know what they're doing? How do they do it?
Yes, not West Bloomfield, but Bloomfield does have community paramedics. They go out and they assess patients that are high users to kind of figure out what their needs are. And what we plan to do with our system is pair up with the social worker, with this medically trained person to go out and assess these high users' needs. Is it a reason that they're not taking care of their medications properly? Is there a way that they're not getting their medications? What resources can we connect them to? It might be as simple as making sure that we're scheduling Meals on Wheels for them to make sure that they're healthy and receiving the nutrition. So that's kind of what the program's going to start off with, is those high users and try to formulate a plan to help them be more healthy in their lifestyle.
So if we approve this person and you hire somebody, they have a plan, they know what they need to do on day one, right? They're not gonna have to figure out, what's this job all about and what do I need to do? We're gonna be able to tell them, these are your tasks, these are your goals, right?
Yes, there's going to be a plan in place for them.
Okay, okay. But the Community Risk Reduction Officer, I have to tell you, when you were going through your slide presentation, I thought I knew what this position did. And then when you went through your slide presentation, I thought, oh my goodness, I have no idea who has this entire skill set. And I'm not gonna ask you to pull that back up, but if you look at that, do we have anybody in-house? I mean, if we add this position, can we promote from the inside? Do we have somebody that does everything or can do everything that you presented to us this evening? Do you want to look at your slide just to see, or?
So
I mean, this is beyond just an inspector, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So with the EFO program that I went through, I was trained in that stuff. The staff in command is training them a little bit right now. We do have a fire inspector who's going through staff in command right now. Okay. So there's also classes that are online offered through the National Fire Academy for this program.
Okay.
So we will make sure that they're trained up. I will assist them in getting their sea legs going, and that they make sure that they do a good job.
All right, so you're the mentor, from
Yeah.
Mentor?
Yes, correct.
Yes, okay, that's right. Sorry.
Good one, Henry.
Thank you for noticing, thank you. Nobody else, the people from Ohio didn't even laugh. Chief, that's all I have. Thank you very much, I appreciate it. See, nothing to be nervous about.
I got mentor.
The last thing is just a comment, we're talking about adding personnel, and, it's great. We can always add more personnel because there's always more work to do. And, more with less has always been sort of a motto around here. And I've always said, until you get to the point where you start doing less with less. So I get that. But, one thing we never really talk about is, where can we cut? How can we reduce our financial burden to our taxpayers? And, they just got a increase 5%. They're getting another 5% next year on their taxes. People who are buying a house and get hit with the pop-up tax are gonna get their minds blown, I think. I think we really need to take a long, hard look at some of our policies, procedures, some of the things that we do around here. I keep bringing up lawn care. I'll bring that up again. That's, if we cut lawn care in half, we're saving several $100,000. I'm glad somebody brought up velocity because, velocity is, I love everybody over there. That's great, but we're pumping a lot of money into that. And frankly, I don't know what we're getting out of. So I'm looking forward to anything that the city manager provides us that sort of leads us down that road. But I really, I think that everything that is being proposed, I don't want to say everything tonight that is being proposed, I can support, but I really want to take a long, hard look at some of our procedures within the city and see if we can actually make some reductions. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Yanis. Mrs. Sarowski?
Yep, thank you, Mayor Taylor. Well, I came here with a very bad migraine, and I still have that, so I'm going to be as brief as possible. So, but I am going to address some things, and I do want to thank everybody, all the department heads. You did a wonderful job. You gave us some nice, concise information. So pretty much, I don't have a lot of comment or a lot of questions. I do have some comments. To Mr. Dion, I do really like to see the GIS mapping going on. I think that is wonderful. I do have some questions for Mr. Helander, if I may, because I think that is something that's going to scare the residents a little bit, so the more information, the better. And I'm envisioning Amazon packages dropping on everybody's heads.
Yeah.
And probably mostly on my neighborhood, because I might be called a frequent flyer, literally, frequent shopper. So how are we going to control that? How do we not just envision, but what are the nuts and bolts? How are we going to control someone like me who gets 5 or 6 packages a day?
Yeah, so there's, There's a whole process and framework for this. For one, last week, we spent 2.5 hours to have an open house in Detroit where we invited all the residents in and their kids. And we went through that process and a lot of the communities that we're working with as part of this process is to build a transparency, either portal or website about what the community is looking to do and incrementally educating the communities. Because you're right, there's not going to be drones deliveries this year or next year, probably in Sterling Heights. It's being prepared so that you can have these conversations about how do we integrate them safely and understand privacy and the community sentiment. So it's very important that you start on that journey early so that you are prepared to work with your communities and figure out how you want that. Maybe there won't be drone delivery to every home, but maybe there will be to a drop-off point, or it will be between hospital and lab, or it will be between, supplier and along their supply chain. So there's a way to increment it into the community, and that's why this is important, to start to at least try to talk through this and start the conversations.
And so then the community can expect that we as council would be legislating how that looks. We would have ordinances, we would have things
Correct.
set in place so that we can control that.
Yeah, so we just worked with the city of Charlotte, Carson, California, and we worked and we built out policies, and we actually worked with the FAA attorneys to make sure that airspace is managed by the airspace. Takeoff and landing is managed by the community, and making sure those delineations are correct. And that's what we're here to make sure you guide, that you don't preempt FAA, and make sure you have that balance of what you can and can't control. And that's what we help do through the systems.
Okay, because I'm envisioning people with baseball bats coming at the drones.
Oh yeah, we've seen it all.
I'm not, it sounds funny, but I'm being serious.
No,
I envision that.
we do see it all.
Yes.
We see thousands of flights per day in the stories, so.
Well, okay. And I don't want that to be my community where it sounds like bees everywhere. So it is something that we will have to take a very strong look at. So I appreciate your honesty and your transparency, and we'll work together as much as we can. So thank you very much. All right, very good. And so that's all I have for you, Mr. Healy, or Helander. Police Chief Dojkowski, please. Thank you. So I do have a couple of questions on the new mobile command center. We did hear from fire that it's taking 3 years to build an engine. How long would this command center vehicle, if we funded it today, how long would it take?
Yeah, that would be a long time. It's going to be at least a year build-out process. Most communities are going with vehicles like this, and who did I just talk to? Just talked to another chief that got a recent quote for a very similar vehicle that I showed you, and they said it was 14 to 16 months build time, so it's going to be long.
Okay, I expected that. I did see in the photo, it looked like that command center vehicle could also itself tow another trailer type.
Yeah, the Michigan State Police version had a full-size trailer behind it for emergency equipment, probably portable lights and everything for disaster response.
Okay. All right, so that's what that looked interesting as well, so I appreciate that. I'm very glad to see that the flat cameras have had a lot of benefit. We are abiding by the guidelines and making sure that, just like the lean system, there are strict guidelines that we are using. Let's see what I needed to ask. Anything more on that? Oh, yes. So today, watching TV in bed, because I didn't go to work today, I saw another situation. This was, police were called to a wellness check of a guy who was driving a semi. This is over in the west side, I think Texas, Oklahoma. It's a wellness check, and it ended up with a guy that they were checking on to make sure he was okay being shot by the police officers, because he was not okay mentally, and he attacked them, he tried to drive his truck into them, and the only option that they felt like they could use was shooting him to death. And no, that's certainly not what we want. And I am very pro-police. My son is a military police officer, so please, you understand that. So I am very, very, extremely very in favor of having our second MSW on as many, and both MSW social workers on board with every call that we can. This integrated health team that we would have, wonderful. That is extremely important. As a nurse myself, I work with social workers all the time, and that it can't be stated enough that to de-escalate a situation, oftentimes, as Chief mentioned, the specialty training is not always for every officer. It's for those that are well-trained and well-suited to that situation. And so I'm very much in favor of as much as we can. I'd love to see a couple more social workers on board. It'd be nice if, and as a nurse myself, we joke all the time. Psych is our second job. There's never, and I know that probably the police chief and all police officers feel the same way. Every patient, every call, everything that we do, there's a psych component. So it can't be stressed enough that high-intensity issues are very dangerous and stressful. So thank you. I think that's all I have for you, Chief, so I appreciate all your time. And then Chief Edmonds, thank you. I just have a couple of statements and a couple of questions, just to have you reiterate or at least support what I'm going to ask. So it said, I think you said the stat was 161 residents have placed over 1,100 calls. Is that what?
It's 1,100 times we've transported those 161 patients to the hospital.
So more, yes, so that's a lot. It's like almost 10 times, a little bit less, but still. And that's, so those, I do appreciate that you've gone into the risk reduction, and needing a risk reduction officer for all. Is that where the risk reduction officer is going to be used as well, or is that more for inspections?
It's going to be inspections and also how we attack problems. Those two new individuals are going to work in concert on some things and work separately on other things.
Okay, I know that. And I know that we have been trying to do education for the cost recovery. And so I'm confused. So the community integrated health officer or fire personnel?
Yeah,
Explain
the
who's
mobile
what?
integrated EMS coordinator is going to help with like the public education.
Okay.
The EMS side of the house, and then the community risk officer will help with the fire side of the house.
Okay, thank you, because
And there'll be projects that they need to collaborate on.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the clarification, so thank you. I'm going to blame it on my migraine, and my brain is scrambled today. So I appreciate that, because those are two things that, yes, you do. You have both EMS runs and fire runs, and sometimes they merge, and most times they do not. And I think we have identified that most of your runs are EMS runs and less are fire runs. So I think that will help with all of your needs. And that's all I have for you, Chief. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm just going to make a comment to Tammy Turgeon, our librarian. Love the library. When we moved here 30-plus years ago with my family, we became, we got our library cards with the 3 kids I had at the time. One was only 1, so it didn't really matter, but we could get stuff out for him, but he didn't know what he wanted. And it was a great library, but nothing like it is now. It has grown, it is so interactive, it is useful, it is a community space for everyone. And I appreciate everything that you've done. It is, it's remarkable. And I'm so excited to see where it's going to continue to go. So thank you for everything that you've done. And Mayor, that's all I have tonight.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Sarowski. I want to thank my colleagues on the City Council for their insightful questions and comments tonight. As always, thank you to the directors who are here presenting, our guest as well. Thank you for your presentation. I'd be comfortable calling you Mr. Mike. That's what the kids call me now. I mean, I always thought one day I was going to grow up and I'll be like my dad and they'll call me Mr. Taylor, but no, they just call me Mr. Mike. So, I don't know. I guess I don't get that same respect that I gave the old folks when I was a kid. But in any event, thank you. Appreciate all the presentations, Mrs. Varney. I'm sorry I missed you at the beginning, but we all meet with Ms. Varney and we talk with the directors throughout, and I appreciate all the feedback and information that we've gotten. And I know that this is a difficult process for every department, and not everything that everybody wants makes it in the budget, but I do think that this pretty accurately reflects what our priorities are. I am trying to stall a little bit because Mr. Radke walked out of the room, but he's just going to have to vote next time, I guess. So we have a motion on the floor. We do need to vote. I thought I heard him maybe. All those in favor of the motion on the floor to introduce the appropriations ordinance indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to the next item on our agenda tonight, which is communications from citizens. Would any of the three of you like to speak on any item not on tonight's agenda? And by the way, tonight's agenda has everything that has to do with the city, so you have to talk about something not to do with the city, I guess. Anybody? Going once, going twice, so I'll close that portion, go on to, do we have reports on this agenda? I guess we do. We have reports from city administration. Anything, Mr. Vanderpool?
Mayor, thankfully, nothing further.
Okay, Mr. Koszybski?
Nothing tonight.
Council, anybody, any reports? Mrs. Zarko?
Okay, thank you, Mayor Taylor. I'm going to be brief, but, I'm still coming down from seeing the eclipse yesterday in Ohio. And it was phenomenal, and I understand why people actually travel the world to experience it, because it was a once-in-a-lifetime event, I thought. But all those glasses that everybody wore, whether you were here or no matter where you were at, there's a company that's collecting them to recycle the glasses, and what they're doing is they're collecting them and they're sending them to schools in Venezuela because there'll be a solar eclipse, I believe, in October. And I was wondering if we could, I'll research the company and pass it on to administration, but if we could have a collection point, maybe either at the library or the community center, to bring those glasses in so that somebody else can use them. So nothing further on that. That's it.
Okay, Mrs. Koski?
Through the chair to Mr. Vanderpool, I received a call this afternoon from a resident wanting to know if he could keep his recycling bin.
Are you talking about the old recycling bin?
The old one, yes.
Maybe he can, I don't know. Can he keep it?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilwoman Koski, he can indeed keep it, he just can't set it out. So in that particular case, I think you mentioned he was interested in giving it to his son that does not live in Sterling Heights, and he's welcome to do that. Again, he can keep it himself, he just can't set it out because we don't want any confusion with the blue recycling cans that we have now moved to.
Thank you.
Council, anyone else? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support. Been moved and supported. No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you again, everyone, for coming out.